Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the after show. Already here, coding live. Hi guys, upvote guys. Um, our header today, our topic is the one that got away. What is that one watch you could have bought, but you didn't? And now you're full of regret. Now you're full of regret. Or what is that one watch that you were about to make a deal on and that you backed off at the last second and now you're full of regrets? Or what is that one watch that you ended up selling because you were not all that hot on it at that point in time, but now you regret selling it? So that's what we are going to talk about today. I'm gonna start myself, and this was a watch that I actually saw, or at least a similar watch that I actually saw in a dealer here in downtown LA, and I was pretty new in Los Angeles at the time, and hey, Ozzy, how are you doing, man? My wonderful co-host is here.
G'day. Good to see you.
Hey,
You had a nice
good to see
show
you.
earlier today.
Oh, thank you. You were in the chat. Yes, when the professor was here, you were in the chat.
Yeah. Interesting topics, whether it's crashes or what people would like to see ADs to do.
Yeah. Well, El Professor is on his way to Geneva, basically, for the next 2 weeks. So I wanted to have him jump on the stream for a little bit and share with us some insight. And I'm sure he will have much more to share, although probably he'll be speaking in code for the most part after he comes back. But
Some
yeah,
cryptic secrets.
right. Well, I think we can sweet talk him to share some of it. He's a very gentle and very knowledgeable person, so I think we can convince him to tell us more. Not more than he should, but more than he initially shares.
Yeah. Amongst all of the gray doom and gloom talk, there's a lot of people who are openly speaking negatively of Rolex.
Right.
And a lot of them don't see it as more like a luxury problem, a victim of success, but something that is evil or not good, something that could have been easily avoided. But I really think the opposite of that, that they're doing the very best they can, and what I see is the very best that can happen when demand outstrips supply.
Yeah, that's the thing. Look, I mean, it's partly in our legal code, right? That we have made corporations into persons, right? So we do, in a way, on a sentimental and metaphysical level too, we think of them as a single subject, single personality who can be good or evil or who can do things at will. Whereas, of course, when it comes to the size of corporations, and we're not even talking about Apple or something, but when it comes to the corporations of Rolex's size, of Patek's size, they're not that nimble, actually. They can't just respond to some recent trend or upsurge in a way that we would wish to be the best path. The best path for them, the best path for the customer, whatever you mean. In either case, like you said, there are so many exigencies, there are so many different things that they have to react to at any point in time. And that's not, to begin with, that's not a good place for a company to be in. You don't want to be reactive. You want to plan ahead. You want to think long term, and you want to stay ahead of things rather than falling behind and reacting to them. So that's one part. The second part, I think, that we are forgetting, especially when it comes to the size of a watch brand that Rolex is, and it's really humongous compared to most. Again, Audemars Piguet, 40,000. Patek, what is it, 60,000? I don't exactly know, but it's under 100,000. Lange is under 6,000. So Rolex has a much bigger problem managing the perception of its brand, especially because its fate is not even in their own hands, right? It's trusted to, that's what they say, like, our trusted jeweler network, right? That's how they present the authorized dealers. So they have to trust their fate into what, like, I think like 1,700 or maybe 17. How many authorized dealers does Rolex have worldwide?
Sounds like the right ballpark. What you said at the start is very true. A lot of people turn companies into people and ascribe emotions to it and motive beyond maybe is worthwhile speculating about. And then on the ground level, I see people turn people into corporations. Like they blame the SAs about how they're treated and stuff like that. Now, some part of it is some SAs are bad, some are good, but the ones that are bad aren't the ones that are telling you can't get the watch. Those are the ones that are being truthful.
And honestly, again, that those are actual human beings, at least. So to them, you can attribute motives and emotions and behavior. That's fine. But like you said, sometimes people might be even mistaken in that perception as well. But in either case, I think when you kind of take a step back and look at both sides of the argument, there are a lot of legitimate points on both, even with the misunderstandings and broad generalizations. J617 says it's not a Rolex's job to chase out the bad actors. BMW doesn't blacklist drag racers. I think BMW would need drag racers at this point. If I might be honest. Thomas says Rolex reverse. Don't hate the game, hate the players. And X Armani says, I agree. All of you, welcome to the channel. Thomas, Jay, especially, you two guys, X Armani, these are all regulars. Jimmy, welcome to the channel. Victor M, I think he came for the first time yesterday. There's not much that can be done. He says, either be patient and persistent or...
Oh, no. I think we've just lost Lord for a second there. But I did want to say that with respect to the ADs, a lot of people want them to do the right thing, quote unquote, and respect collectors first and foremost. And that means not selling to flippers, people who have no intention of having the watch, no intention of keeping the watch when they buy it. So what they're doing, in my opinion, is exactly the only thing that they can do, because without a purchase history, anyone could lie, right? So that's all they're doing. And there was a post the other day, I can't remember, it was Rolex forums, talking about a certain AD that asked for his CV. Yeah. And I said, this is not normal, but at the same time, I would provide my CV. Well, it seems a bit odd, but I mean, they're trying to understand who you are.
Here's what I will say. The problem is when it comes to individuals who flip watches, some of it is pure sociopathic behavior. If you have ever had in your life manipulative, sociopathic people around you, you can't you can't really tell them apart. They're usually very good storytellers. They're very manipulative. They know how to take advantage of a situation. They know how to make people feel sorry about them. They know how to make people empathize with them. Um, they just know how to manipulate people. So a lot of times, if you leave it to something like that, which I think is how most authorized dealers and most sales associates are working, like, you know, if you just let people come in and tell you a good story and charm you a little bit and court you into allocating them a Rolex, it's not the fault of the sales associates at that point, right? You know, because most of these people, really, that is their job. Like, this country, the United States of America, is the heartland of the confidence man. This country basically invented the modern concept of a confidence man. So the fact that we have so many of them in the watch world, I think, is not at all surprising to me.
Yeah. Ultimately, they're all just people, and I think there aren't many analogies that I was trying to come across. It's certainly not like a job application. You're trying to build a relationship with one person, and as vulgar as it might be, I was trying to figure out what is the way that I could convey Mike the Snake's journey of trying to get a root beer without any purchase history. And the only analogy that seems to fit in many dimensions is trying to go to the best looking prostitute you can find and trying to get a freebie. it's going to be very, very difficult. It's not really a matter of luck, but it's not impossible.
Much as I appreciate, and I always keep saying this, sex work is work. I have all the respect. I'm not sure if I can get on board with that analogy, but this is the important part, that essentially when a Rolex AD allocates you a watch, a Rolex watch, it used to be the sports steel watches, but now all of them are part of that hype, basically. They are giving you free money. They are giving you a freebie. So essentially, yes, as miserable as it sounds when you put it in the way, that you shouldn't have to beg, or you shouldn't have to kiss someone's backside to, for the privilege of buying a watch at retail. Forget about the retail price. Market price, when they sell you something at MSRP, they are giving you free money. They are basically putting the trust in you. If you are just average individuals like the rest of us, they're putting the trust on you that you won't put that watch immediately in the secondary market, turn around and try to sell that watch at profit. So it takes something, it takes some time, it takes some effort to build that relationship. So that's the part of the argument that I completely agree with. People love your hat, by the way, Ozzy. BK says, and of course, earlier
Tudor Tuesday.
Yes, tuna. Yes. Do you have to jump off now or in a little bit?
Yeah, I got to jump off now. I'm sorry, guys. I got family aggro. I gotta jump. Maybe I'll be back later. Everyone have a lovely evening, and same to you.
Have a lovely Tudor Tuesday, guys. Take care, Ozzy. Thank you so much for jumping on. All right, guys. So we at least could say hi to Ozzy Expat and Ozzy Jr. on a Tudor Tuesday, rocking a Tudor hat and the Tudor Pelagos, the original. Saber's here. Hey, Saber.
Lord. Right.
How are you doing, man?
I don't know. Right. Am I being too much of a hippie when it comes to buying things at retail? My discussion just then with on the other stream. Am I being too much of a hippie?
For wanting to buy things at retail?
No, for feeling that too much has been Right, because my point there was that.
Yeah, explain it at length because not everyone is catching up from the
Right.
beginning.
Okay. So in the previous stream, Archie's stream, essentially the back and forth between that was that everybody complains about, you know, the hype and all the rest of it, but as soon as they get the opportunity to buy that watch, or they buy things that they don't even like, or necessarily can't afford, because they know it's got a resale value. So my point was, if you really just care about the watch as itself, as just a watch, and look, I know what it's like, you know, to earn money and pay bills, and then for someone like you just said then, you know, essentially the AD are giving you, if you get any allocation for a sub, right? So in the UK, a sub is what, £8,050. I think grey market prices at the moment maybe like is it like 14,000, something like that? I haven't looked. I try not to look at these things because I don't want to get depressed. But so essentially, the AD is giving you £6,000 there. Now, if you don't want the watch or you see it purely as an investment, then part of you is going to say, why don't I just sell this at some point within a year and take that £6,000? However, if you're somebody who's like, actually, you know what, I've made a considered decision, I just want to buy the watch because I just like the watch, then the resale value means nothing to you. My point that I was trying to make was that I've only elected to say, okay, now I'm going to buy a sub, is because beforehand I wanted to just see what watches I liked, kind of get my feel for it. I mean, you know, I everybody complains about, you know, the Instagram stuff and doing things for other people's sake. I genuinely do feel like a lot of watch enthusiasts buy watches that they can't actually afford because it's a luxury purpose at the end of the day. You know, you can tell the time with a Casio F91W, right?
Hey,
If you really want to.
You can tell the time with your smartphone. Why
Yeah,
you need
or, you know, looking at the sun, right? And so I feel like a lot of people then they have to treat the watch like an asset because so much of their financial worth is tied up into it. Or they've really overcommitted on that purchase. Whereas I think if everybody was maybe a bit more patient, and look, everybody's free to do with their own money what they please. I'm not here to say that at all. But what I'm saying is, if you really just care about a watch, just buy it when you're comfortable. Nobody needs this shit. Nobody needs it. You know, so just buy it when you're comfortable. That's why, for my personal opinion, when I was getting into watches, I did look at things like, you know, Tudor and Zinn, Doxa and stuff like that. But I was like, hang on a minute. Because look, also another thing is I think part of the problem is within the watch sphere, like you were saying before.
Yeah,
I think we can kind of forget actually how expensive this stuff is in comparison to what most people actually earn. Look, there's members of this community who are very wealthy. I am not one of those people, so I have to make considered decisions. I was like, hang on a minute, right? In the position I'm in, I can't really afford to waste £3,000 on, you know, a watch that I potentially won't want at some point and then lose money on it. So really, I'd rather just actually wait, see what my taste is like, and then put my name down for that sub, which is what I did. When I first started collecting watches, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I could have bought a pre-ceramic sub just with the money that I had at the time. But I was like, you know what? That's a lot of money to commit. I just buy the things that I like, and that was that. And then that debate then turned into, you're only saying that because you can't get a watch at retail. I've already bought a Rolex at retail. I gave one to my dad. I put £5,200 just to somebody else.
just as talking points. So it doesn't really matter what you say. He's not listening to you. He's just waiting for his turn to speak. So
I personally, I think he got a little bit offended because I think he thought I was referring to him when I was talking about people who have hype collections. I think that's why he thought I was saying it to him.
He does have a hype collection. Well, I mean, what's the problem there?
But you know, my point was that, look, if somebody's, you know, dream watch is a Pepsi or a Panda or whatever, then, you know, go for it. Like, if that's what you want. But you can't have all this kind of stuff and then not be in the position where you cannot have it. You know, you can let it go. And look, if he's got offended by it, then he's kind of taken something that I didn't even mean, right? But my point was just that I know that you two aren't on the best of terms, so I know you're like, yeah, fuck that guy.
No, that's the point. I think Tim knows that he did wrong by me, and because he doesn't want to admit that, he wants to double up on it. I don't have a problem with Tim. I like Tim.
Yeah, I don't mind him either. I don't mind. I was on his stream a couple of days ago. I was fine.
And I'm friendly to Tim. He's the one who keeps attacking me every other stream, but you know that it's no matter. He's still too young, so he will learn in time. I think his character will settle in, and he won't
I think I'm younger than Tim.
try so hard. But yeah, but maybe you are mature for your age. Well, what I will say about this is actually very simple. When it comes to me and collecting watches, I've been in this almost for 2 decades now.
Right. Okay.
Since I was a teenager, basically.
Right.
And things were very different then. So I got socialized into it in a very different way, right? You would basically go and rummage in jewelry stores. You'll look at books, auction catalogs, coffee table books, reference books to try to gauge what may be the best example of a watch. Obviously, whatever money you have when you're a college student, it's very limited, right? It doesn't matter what kind of background you have. You have to put, you have to skip lunch on one day.
Yeah.
You have to check the books out of the library rather than buying them for that semester.
Or know a guy who's downloaded them all.
You have to double your shift in the library stacking books. Anyway, so you save your money. For me, because I was doing it that way while I was researching, I was saving money, my collection grew very organically. And
right.
It's not that I'm inherently patient. I'm actually my nature, I'm very impatient. I can't wait for shit. I want it now. I want it now. But because of the way I got socialized into collecting watches, in watch collecting, I'm very patient. I take my time. I take sometimes years to make a purchase.
Right.
I save money. I do research. I go out, even take trips to other cities to handle good examples of watches, and then I make a decision. So I can understand what's going on now, but I can't really relate to it. And when you say something like this to me, this clicks immediately, because that's how I look at it. Like, whether it's a contemporary watch or not, just sit down, save your money. Maybe you already have enough money. Well, save more.
Yeah.
And try to see where the market is going. Like you said, none of these things are necessary. They are not necessities. They are luxury commodities. So get it when the time is right. Get it when you know this is exactly what you want, what you desire.
Yeah.
That commodity that will make you complete.
Because that's the thing. Like I was when I was talking to, I think it was Tim. Just was it Tim? But we were on Archie's stream, and he was just asking me. And look, if he sees this, I haven't got a problem with Tim. It's just, it is what it is. He was saying to me, "What do you have at the minute?" And I was like, just a couple of Casios, couple of Seikos. I was talking to my friend about this, who's like one of my actual only in-person watch friends, and I was showing him that I bought a Seiko Turtle, but I had a guy in Indonesia make a bronze case, crown, and bezel for it, and then the other parts that I put together on it. In total, it cost me about £1,100 in total to put it together. And he was like, for £1,100, you could have got an Oris Aquis or whatever. And I was like, but I didn't want those. I wanted this. And he was like, yeah, but it's a lot of money to waste on a Seiko. And I was like, but it's not wasting it because I want it. And I was in the position where it wasn't, live or die. It's like when you go into a casino. Don't go into a casino if you need that $200 to pay your bills. Go into the casino where you're in the position where that $200 could get flung out of a window and it would be fine. I just think a lot of people who are buying this high-end stuff, because it is high-end stuff, it's luxury stuff. There's a reason why not every single person, even if Rolex Submariners were available to everybody, is going to be wearing a Rolex Submariner because it's expensive. So I don't know. I think it's an attitude thing, and especially with Instagram, with the hype culture, everybody feels that they have to have this sort of stuff. Why can't you be comfortable, wearing a Seamaster? Look, a lot of people would say the Seamaster was a superior watch in certain ways to a Sub. Just buy the one you want. Obviously, availability is going to be different at this point, but just buy the one you want. I don't think a lot of people are buying the watch that they want. They buy the one that they think everybody else thinks they should have. Like, have you ever seen the titles of some videos on YouTube. Oh, which watches get respect from the community? I couldn't give a fuck what anybody thinks about my watches. Yeah, like honestly, search that in on YouTube. You'll see which watches get respect by the community, which watches do enthusiast respect. Nobody's paying my bills. They're not bothered about how much money I've got in the bank. Why the fuck should I give a shit?
I'll give you both an agreement and a cynical answer, because
Okay, go on.
I think with the core of what you're saying, I completely identify with it. I
Okay.
agree with it, because I could personally care less about what anyone else says about what watches I wear and how I wear them. Like, you can't imagine when I was in college, the first luxury watch and the first Rolex watch that I bought with my own money was the root beer, and people hated on two-tone watches then. You cannot believe the amount of shit I got for wearing a root beer. Or these days, when I'm wearing my Submariner on a leather band, people give me
dive on a leather.
Let's welcome our guest. REG is here and Ali is here for the first time. Very nice to see you both.
Hi, you guys.
Welcome to the channel.
Good to be here. What's the topic of the day?
The topic of the day was, I thought, the one that got away, but we will circle back in there. Saber came in actually with what is more or less a counter argument, right? You know, why don't we just sit back, be patient, not get caught up in any of the trends and hypes, and make informed, considered decisions for ourselves? And I agree with it, but I was also gonna, okay, well, you know, as a reader of Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the discourse on inequality, I also know part of the human condition is the fate and really the suffering that goes with having to see yourself through the other's eyes, right? Because at the end of the day, no matter how authentic you think you are, no matter how you have a sense of yourself as an individual, at the end of the day, you do care about what other people think.
Yeah, totally agree.
I agree.
It might be a very close circle. It might be just your family. It might be just the two best friends you have. But at the end of the day, you can hardly find a human being on this earth who just doesn't care. I think actually that person would be probably a little off in the head, you know, if they genuinely don't care about anyone else.
Where I see, and that's, I don't disagree with your perspective, Lord. And thanks for having me on again, by the way.
Of course. Always.
The one thing that it's everybody has a fear of, that fear of missing out. That they want to be, there's a perception of what it means to be in the community or part of the community and part of whatever the community is. And again, I'm using the term in the generic sense. And so, okay, well, I need to have that Daytona, that rainbow Daytona, for me to consider to be truly part of that group. And if I don't have it, then I'm not. It's not even an issue of it being a hype piece or not. It's about, this is what society has said I need, or in whatever scope of society we're talking about, for me to be considered to be part of it. Just like there's certain watch groups and cliques where you got to have a Rolex. If you don't have a Rolex, you can't be part of it. And I think a lot of that, it comes down to that.
I think, from my part, like, I'm big into watches that have meaning to me, right? So, and some of my watches that have meaning are also hype pieces. Like the Royal Oak has a very specific set of meanings to me. It's also a hype piece, right? And then I have the reservoirs and the G-Shocks and stuff like that. JJ still, I think, said it best, right? You have people who want the hype pieces because it's a status symbol. And then there's certain brands, and Rolex is the brand JJ was talking about, where Rolex is the brand, the working man's brand if you made it. And it also serves a luxury market. Like that's one of the unique things about the brand, is that a guy who's worked with their hands their whole life, that has made it, that gets a Rolex, that Rolex means something to them very specifically. Yes. So I think you can do both, right? And then there are people who go out and buy, Playtonas simply for the sake of being a hype piece. But I think it could be both. But the one that got away is, I think that's a healthy thing for people to have, is to always remember what got away, because it can, if they treat it properly, changes their frame of mind to make sure that something doesn't get away again, whether it's starting a business, a watch, a car, whatever. like having that thing that got away, a woman, man, whatever, I think can be a perfectly healthy thing.
I just to counter the point then you made. I just think then I think you've got to have a candid conversation with yourself about what are your particular reasons for buying this watch.
Sure.
You know, if it, you know, no matter what it is, whether it's something that is, you know, other people would deem expensive or inexpensive, and I just think too many people weigh on the opinions of other, you know, like you were just saying there about the Royal Oak. You know, you clearly like the watch first. It just happens to then be something that's got, you know, that air of, you know, mystique and interest about it or whatever, given its popularity in the general watch, you know, enthusiast base. And that I don't have a problem with that. It's when people are, you know, oh, I like this, but, you know, oh, that one's the, you know, it's like when people say that watch is a better watch than this. I don't really subscribe to that point of view, because if anything, all of these wristwatches are obsolete pieces of technology. We wear them because it's, you know, an appreciation of engineering or art or history or whatever. There is no objective reason to buy one over the other, you know. So that to me is just it just frustrates me, because I mean, so, you know, there was a reference then in that previous stream that, oh, you'll feel differently when you buy the sub. The only reason I wanted the sub is because I wanted something that I could wear every day that then, you know, put me out of something, you know, with lack of water resistance. I wanted something that was slim enough, you know, that I could wear it with a suit, because I wear a suit every day, so it will fit under a cuff because it's 12 mil, you know, something that the strap was, you know, just about all those sort of reasons, and it just fit the bill. It's like, for me, the sub is like the M3 or the M5. It epitomizes the category. It's what the watch that all the others are measured against in its genre. That's why I wanted it. The retail value doesn't matter to me, because I'm never going to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I've waited to then elect for that one. Go on, sorry, go for it.
But by the way, the Aussie expat has a very interesting and thought-provoking point. He says, how much rent is the watch taking up in your mind? Maybe it's better to buy than to gripe and keep thinking about it.
That's a really great point. I really think that's a very smart point. It is about, you know, if you're just thinking about it all the time, just pull the damn trigger and just buy it and get it out of your mind if it's that important to you. But again, it's about, and I'm reading some of the comments, and people are saying, just think about real reasons why you want to make that purchase. I'll give you some examples, right? I'm into headphones because I like headphones. I'm into audio equipment because I like it. I also like luxury luggage and things of that sort. I don't do it because I want to flex that, look at me, I'm awesome here. I love the quality and marksmanship, or marksmanship, quality and craftsmanship of certain goods.
And you can stack them up nicely, like the podcast does as well.
Yeah. But you know, it's we all have things that we value and that we appreciate and that we kind of strive for here, right? And this, you know, it's just what we value.
Have any of you bought watches that you actually, it was underwhelming buying it after you had thought about it for a while and you got the opportunity, when you actually owned it, you were underwhelmed?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
I never actually. The only,
Lord's like never. I love
Good
it.
for you. Good for you.
the only time I had that dread was about the Reverso, right? Because before that, my collection was all round cased, oyster cased Rolexes, and it took me almost 5 years to contemplate it again, to go out, try on examples, different sizes. And the first time, the first day of my ownership, I put this watch on, and I used to row, right? You know, and it reminded me of someone putting a gold medal around my neck. It was such a special feeling.
Yeah.
So it was opposite, actually, what I experienced. I was dreading, oh, you know, it's an old man's watch. Like I will hate it. I'll have to sell it and take a loss at it. Whatever, I will have to try. But other than that, it was never a blind. And it was never like bungee jumping or something. It wasn't. I had taken so much time to really convince myself that I wanted it, I needed it, and I got it. So I never had that experience, actually.
Yeah, for me, it was a Grand Seiko. For me, I picked up a Grand Seiko last year. I called it the Beast Below. It was their 60th anniversary Grand Seiko diver, over-engineered just to the brink. new movement, and I got it. Presentation was beautiful. It was obviously like anything Grand Seiko, finished perfectly, but I put it on my wrist and something was wrong, like right off the bat. Right. And I ended up selling it not long after, right? Took a bath on it. Because it was just wrong right off the bat. So it's definitely happened to me. The Grand Seiko is the biggest example. It's happened a couple of times over, 40 some odd watches. But the Saber said something objectively, and I think objectively as time, as utility pieces, watches serve almost no purpose, if none whatsoever, right? So that's fair. But objectively as luxury goods, accessories, fashion accessories, for some people, right, confidence boosters.
No, it's not. It's Cristiano Ronaldo. I definitely am not Cristiano Ronaldo.
I think someone is scrolling. That's why I highlighted that.
Oh, right, sorry.
That's
oh,
nice.
actually, no, it is me. It is me.
A nice kiss he's blowing there for sure.
So I think, objectively, it has different meanings. Objectively, as utilities, right, wristwatches are fairly useless for the most part, other than, maybe some G-Shocks, some Timexes, Garmin, stuff like that. But
I think it's actually, Ali, the thing is, the reason we obsess so much about tool watches in the watch community in general is exactly because of that. Because we are so, the wristwatches have become so useless that we get so passionate and so obsessed about the kind of real life, adventurous and sporty and dynamic use that they once had.
That's a great point.
We have to, in fact, overcompensate.
It's a bit like cars and the performance of cars. Nobody is ever going to use the performance that a lot of these cars are capable of, but it's nice to know that it does 195 miles an hour. When are you ever going to do 195 miles an hour?
It's I don't know. And in my life, I've never been a car person, which I guess is a rarity. I think, but every watch person I met is also a car person.
And Felix says, "Nah, I disagree. I wear a watch to tell the time. You're a better man than I am. I will say that."
I will. It's actually I've become, because I've been wearing watches so long, right? That when I first started carrying a phone, they were the Razor flip phones and the brick phones, the Nokias before that, and then went into the Blackberries. And you didn't really use them for time as often as you do with the iPhone generation, the Androids today.
You're
right. So I've been wearing a wristwatch so long that it's my default. When I look for time, I look to my wrist. But I think, younger people, I'm in my 40s, it's exactly the opposite. But I was never a car person either. I love my pickup trucks. Certain things have to have a very specific utility for me. Right. I will never go out of my way. I really debated this with Ari and Cap and some other people, buying a Porsche SUV, because I could. And all my contemporaries were buying luxury cars. And it was nice. But I got in the new Tundra and I'm like, this is just so much more for me. This is just mine. Right. I'm a pickup truck guy. I've always been a pickup truck guy. I'm always going to be a pickup truck guy. Right. And I bought a nice Tundra. Right. But and I drive cars into the ground, so it's just different. But the Reservoir is not an expensive watch. My G-Shocks are expensive G-Shocks, but they're not luxury watches per se. I don't know. It's an interesting thought, but I am a different. What you were talking about before we came on. I'm definitely the person who says that if you have to put it on a credit card and you can't pay that credit card off the next day, then you're not doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, totally agree.
Agreed.
49 says it's a mechanical piece of craftsmanship, and that's why I love watches. And he says 9 out of 10 times I look at my watch to admire its beauty and forget to check the time. I'm guilty of this.
You know what? I've put on watches where I forgot to set the time on it, just because I just put it on and just walk out of the house, and I'm like, I just forgot to set the time. I've totally done that.
Do you think part of it is because that this is a mostly male-dominated hobby? Do you think part of it is that there's something inherent about being a man that you need to feel on par with your peers? Because I've sometimes I've had patients, the the area that I'm in at the minute is quite affluent. So sometimes the patients do have nice watches, and sometimes I'll say, "Oh, hope you don't mind me mentioning," because plus in that sort of context, it might be a bit vulgar to be like, "That's an expensive watch you're wearing." So sometimes I've said, "Hope you don't mind me wearing, but is that a such and such? I'm into watches." And a few times they've said to me, "Oh, what have you got on?" And like I said, I've got nothing expensive on, and they've kind of done and I'm fine with that because I'm not bothered. But I can imagine that there might be a type of person that is just a bit like, "Oh, no, I kind of embarrassed myself there," or something, you know.
That's a different problem, right? Like,
Yeah.
that applies to shoes, to suits, that applies to
Yeah.
everything, right? I run into that a lot in my industry when we go to events or there's meetings. Everybody is talking about where they got their suit, their tie, their Hermes tie, their shoes.
Yeah.
Right. For me, it's not that way.
Mhm.
Because for me, I mean, and it's not, there's definitely ego involved no matter what. But for me, it's like, well, you're paying me to be here. Like, you need me. I don't care what you're wearing.
Well, with the tie, most certainly, because tie is basically a phallus. So if you're wearing an expensive tie, certainly you're making some sort of statement.
Yeah.
Those Hermes ties that people keep gifting.
And I love ties, don't take me wrong. I do
Yeah.
love wearing ties as well. But
I mean,
it is a little too
I mean, for me, as long as I'm meeting whatever the rules are of the workplace or wherever I need to go, that's fine. I'll do that. But everything
Ari
else,
walks in and you're like, "You did tell me we needed to wear pants." Oh,
what the
damn it.
fuck? I'm wearing a tie. That's all I'm wearing. But no, in all seriousness, like I don't personally, and again, I'm not claiming people. I'm the perfect data point, but I just don't care. Right. I mean, like I've worn my G-Shock to work sometimes, or worn my G-Shock on the town, and I just don't care. Right. I mean, like I'm doing a business trip next month and I'm trying to figure out, do I wear my Rolex or do I just not care and just wear a G-Shock 'cause it's more practical? Or wear my PRX because I just don't care if I smash it. Right. That's how I'm thinking about it. I'm not thinking about like what's going to make me look like hot and impressive and
Although
awesome.
the
I just don't
PRX
care.
is hot and impressive.
That's
It's
true.
quite a nice
That
watch.
does make me awesome. Yes, that's true. That's true.
I
So
mean,
maybe I should.
like Lord, you were just saying, I don't think there's anything wrong with caring about, we all care to a certain. I mean, look, when we're at home by ourselves, we put clothes on because it's just what you do. When in actual fact, you could just get out of bed and be naked all day. Nobody's going to see you. It'd be fine. Right?
Actually, before I started doing these live streams, I was a nudist at home. So
Jesus. I was just thinking, being naked around the house, you just got to be careful eating soup.
This is
That's
when
the only
Lord
thing I'm
changes
thinking.
his eating soup. The lentil soup needs to be, tempered properly. This is when Lord changes the running banner at the bottom of the stream to include his OnlyFans.
Oh, God, that's exactly it.
I just, I don't know. I just think for a hobby that's mostly populated by, I mean,
you're right. I mean, you're right. At the end of the day, like watches between men can be flex pieces, and it's going to come down to your personality. Like, if you're men can reflect they've made it many different ways, and arguably, and I don't know this actually because I've never really thought it through. Arguably, men can project that they've made it in different ways than women can, right? Because men carry around, especially businessmen, they often carry around their success and their net worth and their portfolios, business deals, mergers and acquisitions, right? So I think we have more options. Like some men, the only thing they can do is flex with, a Cuban link. In full disclosure, I have a Cuban link, right? Or a watch or something like that, right? But it doesn't, I wear a watch all the time, but I don't wear jewelry, and I don't have much jewelry in the first place. But I don't wear jewelry to any business meeting I think of, except maybe my signet ring sometimes, right? Because again, I'm flexing and I'm using that term loosely because I'm not generally actually flexing, but they've called me up for a reason. So if I show up in sweatpants, they still called me for a reason. They need my help. It's different, right? Now, if I'm going, I think, to close a real estate, like buy a new house or something, I'm going to dress up and I'm going to play the part because I want to be treated accordingly. But I'm not really thinking about ever seeing those people again.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it is, it is a sign of accomplishment. Everybody says, you get yourself a nice watch. It's kind of just what you do as a man. Like you said, men don't wear many other forms that you could express it in unless you are really, into your clothes as such, but it's just that thing that I don't see the same attitude. Maybe I'm just in the wrong circles, but I don't see people applying the same attitudes to clothes. Although I know now you get people who resell clothes, and there is that hype around clothes and shoes and like trainers or sneakers or whatever you want to call them. I don't know. I just feel like far too many people care what other people think, and at the end of the day, it makes me feel a little bit sad because at the end of you're the only one going home and paying your bills, and I just there's more to life than this stuff. So buy it because you love it and you want it, not.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to say that because look, if I was getting offered, if my AD was calling me up and going, oh, we'll give you a Rainbow Daytona for £25, I'd be stupid to say no, but
if your AD is giving you a Rainbow Daytona for £25,
they need to be audited.
They've got issues. They've got completely different issues.
But it's just I don't know. I don't know. It's frustrating, and then the counter argument of but you've thingy that's just what kind of got under my skin a little bit because it felt like he felt like I was attacking him, and I wasn't. I was just making a general point. Like I said, anybody is free to buy what they want because I'm not buying it for them.
No, but that's the other thing, Saber. I mean, beyond focusing on a particular person, people do get offended when they hear certain kinds of stereotypes because, again, people care. The average person cares about what other people think. I mean, again, in a time where we don't need to be wearing a wristwatch, if we are wearing a wristwatch at all, and if we are actually wearing a Rolex or any other recognizable brand or style, we are trying to make a point. We are trying to make a statement, or at least we are trying to say something. Simply,
an expression of who you are.
Ali said this in a couple of different ways in the conversation already. But as much as we say we don't care about other people's perception, somewhere deep in there, in the back of your mind, you do care a little bit, for sure. But that's not the same thing as being caught up in the hype and in the most recent trends. There's a distinction.
So there are social standards around respect, and there are norms that you need to adhere to, and that's probably the exception that you're talking to. Like, for example, if you're going for a job interview, let's say in a specific place, then there's an expectation on maybe roughly the things that you wear. Like if you're going, for example, out for a nice lunch with your, God willing, if your mother is around, you go for lunch with your mother, you're going to want to show a certain amount of respect in that case. And so there's going to dress a certain way.
That's actually a really good point, right?
Yeah.
Your spouses, significant others, family members.
Yes.
It's part of it. The respect is putting in the effort. And that doesn't mean it has to be high-end piece.
It doesn't mean it has to be a Rainbow Daytona you got to wear to like Mother's Day brunch or something. That's not what that means.
It's like
right?
if it's for you, it's khakis. If that's as far as you can stretch, the fact that you did do that, right? That you went to the khakis, it is respecting the audience and the people that you're with.
I mean, your mum's like, I hope those diamonds are factory, because if not, get out of my house.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, I have a.
That's the woman I want to marry, by the way.
Yeah.
Saber's mom?
I mean,
no.
I think she's accounted for. It's fine.
Make a distinction between a factory diamond dial, Rolex, and a bust down. That's an ideal woman.
I mean, like I have a couple teenagers in the house, and the older one, if he he just wears like jogging pants and whatever is the most basic thing, like if he puts on something khaki-ish, even if it's with a t-shirt, like that's hyper impressive for him, and he doesn't smell like death. That's like hyper impressive. And so I mean, I'll take that as a big win. I mean, as a father, I'm very proud. But again, you're right. The effort statement is that's absolutely right. It's about the effort.
Yeah, I think, and again, men have that advantage. Among men, effort can be shown in different ways. But I think once you then commingle, again, we're talking traditional relationships, right? I'm not trying to make a social statement, but like women, they show effort in putting on the makeup and stuff because that's part of, that culture, right? And for men, the wristwatch, a shirt without stains, right, that has all its buttons, right? Like that effort
You
is
showered.
appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are a few interesting points. And Angelic Slayer says it doesn't matter how you dress; it matters how your wife dresses. There's a point in there. There is a point in there. Factory sets equals class. To the outside world, qualify that. A watch is a part of you, you'll die, and a watch continues to carry a part of your essence forward. I'd like to think that.
Yeah.
Continues immortality without us. And Aussie Expat says, khaki is a big step up for my usual attire. I normally do tracksuit.
Actually, here's the thing. What was the reaction of those around you when you bought your first high-end watch?
My wife thought I was an idiot.
Right, okay.
Yeah, like if I'm being honest, like it's like, why would you spend that money?
I was 16 and it was Omega. It was a James Bond Omega, right? So my first was like, my mom was like, "Are you dealing drugs?" Right. But I think as an adult,
And how can I get in on the action?
Yeah.
as an adult, because I've never actually been a Rolex guy. I own a root beater now. That's the only Rolex. Rolex, first of all, my wrists are huge. My wrists are about 8.25 inch. So most Rolexes, including Daytonas, Playtonas that I think are gorgeous, look like Skittles on my wrist, right? So Rolex hasn't done much for me. I do own a root beater now, which I love. But for me, the Royal Oak was my first like above Omega purchase, which is a big jump, right? And nobody knew what it was. Right? Nobody knew what it was, so it didn't matter. Like it just didn't matter. And I never had to explain it. It was like, oh, that's a pretty watch. And I never bothered to explain like the heritage of it, what it means to me, what it means to
No one
like
cares.
the market. You know,
They don't care.
now people care.
Yeah.
But now, and again, fortunately, because I've had good fortune in my life, wearing a Royal Oak in these discussion circles, I'm not unique. We're all talking about Jaeger-LeCoultre and Rolex and Audemars Piguet and Piaget and even, Patek, that substandard brand that people seem to like. So
Have you seen that Insta? Go on, sorry, Lord. Go for it.
No, I was gonna say I already like you, Ali, but this is a huge point for me. I also like to think Patek is a little overrated. I came on a little strong today on the panel and tried to say Lange is much better. Just turn that in and get a Lange. I don't think most people were very impressed.
It didn't go over well.
Have you seen the Instagram account? Is it like Horror Mario or something like that? And he does the comparisons between finishing.
No.
Horror Mario or like Horror Mario or something like that. It's got, I know he uses Mario from Mario Brothers as like an icon a lot, but he does macro shots of comparisons, and often he'll do Patek, Breguet, Grand Seiko in one, and he'll say the price is very different between them, and you see the level of finishing is, again, my buzzword, objectively different. And again, that thing of, you own a Patek, you pass it on to the next generation. Listen, I'm not buying things for my kids necessarily. I don't have any kids at this point, so I'm buying things purely for me. And I don't know. I'm a broken record at this point.
My kids get a 529, although my daughter, and I'm proud of her for this. So my daughter has been taking a number of my watches. I bought her first luxury piece for her 14th birthday, which is an Omega Seamaster 300. Nice. It's the sandwich dial. It's got the vintage loom. So I was shocked that she likes it, right? But she loves it. She's got 2 Squallies from me because, again, I haven't been picky and choosy over my years. She's got a Hemel and stuff like that. But she came to me the other day and she said, if I graduate top of my class in high school, can I have your Hanabasara, which is that limited edition samurai G-Shock with a cut bezel and stuff. It's a ridiculously expensive G-Shock. And I'm like, okay, because you asked me for the right one, yes. Right. She didn't ask for a Royal Oak. She asked for the extraordinarily limited G-Shock.
So Aussie Expat says some other experiences from the chat. After my first luxury watch purchase, I have a collection now, and there's still no reaction. Haven't had any comments. Alan Gill says 38 years old, a pre-owned. This is an interesting one. Rolex Explorer 2, 16. My wife yelled at me for buying a used watch.
So the wife gambit, right? My wife would probably be upset at me, but we made a deal when we met, and we've been together for almost 16 years now. She's into cars, which is, by the way, hot. She's a yoga instructor who's into cars. So I married way above my station.
A big upgrade.
Yeah, big upgrade, right?
Yeah.
So she said, if you go get a watch, if you put money into my car fund. So she's got her rows of muscle cars, right? So she doesn't complain, because if I'm an idiot about a watch, she gets a car.
That's a fair exchange, I would say. Fair exchange.
Because when I bought my dad's Explorer, I got often the response I got was, "That's ridiculous," and I was like, "Yeah, but I was going to buy something for myself. I'd rather buy it for my dad." Blah 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 blah. And then again, like the people who were saying it to me, it was all my peers at the time, so we'd all recently graduated, and I was like, "Yeah, but you all drive brand new cars that you're paying finance on, like £400-500 a month, whereas I've kept my first car because I didn't feel the need to change it, and I have none of those payments. So, in the time that you've owned that car and it's not done anything, and look, at the end of the day, that's what they wanted, and that's fine. But I've just saved that money, and so it's the same thing, and I've gotten this out of it. I just
yeah, and that's a good. I drive my cars to 250,000 miles. I drive them into the ground. This is my third, vehicle. I'm 44 years old. Like, I drive them into the ground. They have meaning to me, and I use the money elsewhere, investments for my children, or I do get myself the watches. I can barely dress myself, but I get myself the watches.
Yeah, actually, in saying that, I remember I was watching a documentary about Harrods, and they were saying that specifically it was I think it was the yacht salesman in one of the sections, that they look at people who are dressed shabbily but have expensive watches on, because they're the very high net worth individuals. The people who are decked out in full designer tend to not have that kind of money, which I thought was interesting.
You reminded me when you were telling me the story about the car and buying the watch for your father. Graham Norton, who he's a late night talk show host, Irish. Yeah. So I see his clips on YouTube occasionally. There was a clip promoting the Mission Impossible, I think the last one, where Henry Cavill and Tom Cruise were in it, right? And Henry Cavill, they asked what he did with his first big check, and he's like, we went to the car dealership, and he went with his dad, and there's an Aston Martin, and it was kind of a stretch, but he bought the Aston Martin. And later in the show, and they clipped this together, they asked Tom Cruise what you did with his first check, and he said, I paid my sister's college tuition. Like, what'd you do with your second check? I bought my father a car. They were making fun of Henry Cavill, right? So he bought himself the Aston Martin. I thought that was, I thought your story reminded me of that, because a lot of people I know in this hobby have actually spent years and years doing things for other people. So when they get criticized for buying that luxury watch, I think it's almost offensive. It's almost like obscene. Like, you have no idea what people went through and what they've done for their families and other people before they finally sat down to do things for themselves.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the reason I bought it for my dad was because, he's worked hard, but he always, dedicated, financially. It was always to us as kids, and me specifically. They paid for me to be privately educated, and at the time I was immature and wasted it. And it was only, through a bit of support that I went back and, qualified and all the rest of it. So for me, it was a give back, and I was absolutely fine buying that. I'm the biggest watch enthusiast in my family. I got one of my brothers into it. So for me to then be like, I'm not going to buy a Rolex for myself, I'll buy it for you. It was a big thing. The day was really special. I'll never have a day that tops that, probably until the birth of my own kids, probably. So that meant more to me than just having something for myself at the time.
Good on you. Good on you.
Yeah, man, good work there. We have a question. Maybe we can address it as a panel. Louis V 350. Which Daytona would be harder to get at detail? Platinum, less made, but not everyone is in line for it. Steel, Panda, many more in production, but everyone is on the list. My response to that is, no matter how exclusive it is and how the line might be shorter for it, if it's gonna be your first purchase from a particular AD, no one's gonna give you a platinum Daytona, with or without the baguettes on the dial. But if you already have a purchase history from a certain AD, and you have gotten a whole deck of steel sports watches from them, they might consider you for something different. Otherwise, I think the steel ones are still easier to get. I mean, nowadays it's not, since on the secondary market you can basically, you can't get some of the precious metals. Well, some of the precious metals are already much cheaper at retail than what the steel goes on the secondary market. So since things have gone that way, these days everything at retail is desirable and everything has quite a long line. It's still the steel that's slightly easier. Not to say that you will get it, but
Ari or Saber, do you have a take on that?
I'm aligned with actually how Lord put it. To be fair, I don't know if I have a take that's dramatically different from that myself. I mean, you've said it differently than I have, but I mean, pretty much your take. I'm pretty aligned with Lord how how you've expressed that view.
I think with the Panda's going to be easier because, let's face it, sometimes they have these things in the safe. It's just you have to be the right kind of person to go in. I imagine if you went into an AD and said, I want a Panda, and then you said, I'll buy 3 31mm precious metal watches from you, blah blah blah, or you went into the IWC section and I was like, yeah, I'll take that yellow gold perpetual that's 30 grand, you'd probably be in good favor. I think remember, like, specifically in the UK in lockdown, I don't know what the situation was like where you guys live, but I know for a fact that a lot of ADs were actually then starting to sell pieces to people who didn't have much buying history because there was such uncertainty at the time that they didn't know what they could sell and what they couldn't and when they couldn't. So a lot of people were getting stuff that at the moment would be really difficult. So I think it's just a bit of circumstance.
So my take is, sorry, go ahead, Lord.
I was just going to read Aussies from the chat. These days, platinum is harder. At a smaller AD, impossible. Some ADs simply never get a platinum Daytona.
And that's fair. But my take is different. That's fair. That's accurate. So I live close to Watches of Switzerland. I'm in the Tampa Bay area, right? So Tampa Bay isn't as money or tourist dense as Miami or Orlando in Florida, right? Mm-hmm. So I walked into my Watches of Switzerland and I said I had interest in exactly one Rolex, which was the root beer. And when I thought I made it clear that I was looking for the two-tone, but within 2 weeks they called me up for the old gold, the full gold Everose root beer. And she told me that when people ask for just one watch and it's precious metal, if we have it in the Watches of Switzerland network, those are easier to get than any steel sports model. Right. And, I think a baguette Daytona is not like just a normal precious metal watch, even a regular platinum Daytona isn't. But I think it's worth at least asking them. Like, if I want just one watch, and you're not going to ask for like a menu of watches. Right, I just want one watch. Is the platinum something that you guys could traditionally get for me in network? Because my experience with the only Rolex purchase I've made in years, last Rolex purchase 4 years ago, was 2 weeks. I got the full Everose root beer, and everybody told me, one, they said the root beer was the hottest model. Two, they said it would be months and months and months, and no purchase history with the Rolex. I'd be waiting. Some people said 3 years. It was 2 weeks. So I think it's worth a conversation.
Yeah, I remember my brother told me after it's funny. I got him a custom Seiko in the January for his birthday, and by December he'd bought himself a Rolex. He went in to talk about a Milgauss. It was the only one he wanted. It was just after lockdown had started, and I remember he came back and he said to me that he was a bit disappointed. The AD said, "Oh, we don't really get many in," and they said, "Oh, we could take a deposit, but it would be like maybe 5 months potentially." And I said, because he also said that the salesperson at the time mentioned, oh, it would help your account if you bought jewelry and stuff like that. And then when he said no, because he was like, my wife doesn't need anything and I don't want anything, so I'm not going to do that. That's when they said about the deposit. And he came back and I said, look, they've got the watch. They're just trying to find the person who's going to spend more money than you to get that watch. And then he eventually got back to them and said, look, I'm not going to do this. I still want the watch, blah, blah, blah. He got it 2 weeks later. Because I said they clearly just didn't find that sucker, if we will, and it frustrates me how many people are willing to play
the games.
game.
Yeah, the games.
The AD games. Yeah.
I asked for an Explorer 36. They offered me the two-tone. I said no. They looked at me like I was stupid. I've been wondering since.
And he
No.
asked the question earlier, right? If you turn down a watch, right,
Yeah.
does that damage
Why-
your relationship with
Why
the AD?
did not yell me at that day?
Yeah, you got it. So Alan, my experience again, this is, and I think JJ and I have had this conversation. My ADs have always respected me for saying that that's not really the watch I want. Right? My ADs have always respected me for that, but I do get the impression that in the biggest cities, yeah, it's damaging of the relationship. Like if you're in New York City and you turn down anything, like they won't call you back. But in my experience, it's always been they respected me for saying what I really wanted, and they offered me a lot of different pieces over the years that I just didn't want.
Yeah.
And
I
they
mean,
know
if-
I'm not flipping, right? Because I say no, they know I'm not flipping.
And if they keep coming back, I mean, certainly they have not given up on you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Guys, we have just passed the 1 hour mark. If you have been enjoying the conversation, please upvote. That helps a great deal. Spread the word. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. So if you could share the link in other platforms, that would help a great deal. I'm halfway there basically, so I'm still patient, but with your help, hopefully we'll get there in no time. Until then, until I get monetized, if you want to encourage me, consider making a PayPal contribution at lordhellespontv@gmail.com. That's lordhellespontv@gmail.com. I also have a Cash App at $LHVVV, $LHVVV.
And don't forget that OnlyFans.
Oh yes, I want to. I was saying, like, people are thinking about, let's get the watch game to Twitch and this and that. I'm gonna do like nudist watch reviews on
Do a little
OnlyFans.
photo shoot in a gym, boxing trunks. All that.
I just have to, the problem is, of course, I'll have to find. Of course, no one is interested in me, so I have to find a woman who would be able to do it with me. That's the only way people actually.
With enough shaving cream, there's endless possibilities. So I have an opportunity. You and I haven't ever actually interacted live. So I got two questions for you if you'll humor me. One is the name
Me?
Lord Hellespont. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Lord Hellespont the Fifth. One is the name. The other is when you go off camera, you look like you're the manager of one of Cristiano Ronaldo's teams. So who's the avatar when you're off camera too? Those are my two questions for you.
Oh, so the avatar right now, this one.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy is Giulio Tremonti. He was the finance minister in Silvio Berlusconi's cabinet. Just a joke because I like he wears a Submariner, so it's just an old guy. Kind of does look like Alex Ferguson, I guess, in a vague way.
Yeah, just a wee bit.
I've
I've actually met him. I've actually met him in real life. So,
Ferguson?
Yeah. He like the area that he lives in is close to one of the areas that one of my brothers lives in. So I've met him, and he's a nice guy. But obviously, he gets approached all the time, and everybody gives him the spiel of, blah blah. You meant so much to me. And the thing is, the age that I'm at, he was Manchester United, so it was a bit weird when he retired, and I just said that to him, and he was like, "Oh, thank you very much."
Yeah. That was crazy. Yeah, I mean, a couple of Premier League clubs have that tradition, thankfully, that they actually hand the reins to someone for decades. Arsene Wenger had that kind of career at Arsenal as well.
I think the longest serving one at the moment, I'm not even sure who the longest serving one at the moment.
Klopp just signed an extension, which I think was
2026.
Yeah,
because it was Sean Dyche, but he was like 10 years, but then he's gotten the sack now. It's just it's but again, it's weird. I think sometimes just going back to watches, our world is so insular and we put so much detail into it. And if you were to explain the difference to a non-watch person at why one watches, like for example, a Tiffany dial Patek, if you were to explain that to a non-watch person, they would think you were a moron. But like, it has the writing of a shop on the dial, and then but it's the relationship, and Patek aren't going to let anybody else put anybody's name on the dial, and blah blah. But it's a shop, it's a name.
The funniest thing was when they did this recent conversation with Ed Sheeran at Hodinky. He was basically talking about how he had no clue. Like he learned it
Yeah.
when John Mayer was talking about it, because it was just his Patek
Yeah.
dealer basically. So he went to Tiffany's to get his Pateks, and he only noticed that there was something special about them.
I think if you're Ed Sheeran at that point, yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine being that loaded that you just, oh, really? Oh, that's nice. That's a nice surprise.
Yeah, my Tiffany Patek special. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at any rate, he has very special watches, but like,
Yeah.
the fact that they were somehow made more special by that line of writing, it never had crossed his mind before he saw it actually on another Hodinky video with John Mayer. So it's very strange. Like you said, it makes absolutely no sense if you are not looking for it. When it comes to the name, basically the idea is that since I was entering Archieverse, I thought I should continue the shtick and have like a fake aristocratic name, just like the pontiff. So I invented something. It couldn't be. I couldn't really one up him, so I had to go with something that's a later number. Not second or something. So I chose. And I just that's basically all there is.
All right, fair enough. I'm not. I think I've had disclosed this to you. I'm not. I don't follow Archie Plutus channels. I don't even remember. We were on a backstage just chatting amongst friends, and you were presented to my YouTube, and I tuned in and I shared it, and we were all watching it. You were talking about boxing, right? And we watched you for a while, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like I like this guy. This guy's cool. Like he has things to say. And then I had seen one of your episodes recently. You were talking about philosophy. So yeah, I wouldn't have pieced that together as a aristocratic name. But all right, thank you for answering the question.
Yeah, I mean it's a bullshit aristocratic name, to be specific.
It's original. It's original.
An argument can be made that most aristocratic names are bullshit, but I think that's a political argument.
Exactly. I think for me that's why it's funnier. Like, for example, I used to have a Polar Explorer 2 with Arabic writing on the dial when I first came in as my avatar, and that was actually the father, Hafez al-Assad's personal Polar Explorer 2 that got sold at a Sotheby's auction, if I'm not mistaken, and for what can be understood as peanuts for a historic watch at this point, 7 years ago. So it was kind of a joke. I started that way, and then I put Edward VIII's reverso, coronation reverso that he never wore because he never had the coronation, and Berlusconi's finance minister. Now I usually choose the kinds of people who would be most objectionable to me first, because I find
it's like a geopolitical minefield.
Nice sham, because I hate King Edward because he was a Nazi sympathizer.
He was.
I was never a fan of the Syrian regime. I mean, compared to some nastier stuff like the Saudis, etc. Maybe, but anyway, never a fan of the Assads to begin with. And same thing. Yeah, I actually despise Berlusconi as a character, but it's funny because even that's the point for me, actually. Even with the people whom we might despise at some level, or whom we antagonize politically, hey, we share something. We have something in common. So let's try to understand, what our common affliction is.
Well, I think we paid for our watches. I'm not sure any of them paid for any of their watches. But yeah, we get Persian, and if I'm not mistaken, Lord, you are Jewish. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, Persian and Ari and Lord, we could open up a bunch of geopolitical minefields right now.
Yeah.
Of course.
We could.
Even I'm sure even between Ari and I, we can open multiple political minefields. I'm sure, because you know, I usually
yeah, this isn't monolithic.
a lot of
Yeah.
agreements with when I talk to other Jews about politics.
Oh yeah, there's you get 10 Jews around the dinner table, you'll have 15 opinions. This is you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's
and,
very true.
and the good and bad part about it is it usually happens on a weekly basis. So
It does.
Those are fun. Those are fun families to be close to, though.
yeah.
As an outsider, those are fun families to be close to.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. You know, I'll go on the specifically. There was a coworker I used to work with, and you know, fellow Jewish guy, fairly orthodox. I'm not orthodox like him, and you know, just the way we talk to each other. You know, it's like we're arguing all the time, and so someone pulls me aside and says, "Look, I didn't know you hated him so much." I'm
And
like,
you
"What
just
are you
like, that's the
what-
way we talk to each
What are
other.
you talking about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I'd take a bullet for him. Like, what
Yeah,
are you
I know
talking
exactly
about?
what you mean.
Right? It's just like we're yelling at each other. It's like, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's, you know, it's just how you are.
Yeah, that's good stuff. It's good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So you'll have to excuse me. I did see that you were on a little bit earlier than I remember catching before I wanted to jump on and say hello, but I do need to get going
Yeah.
and get ready for my workday tomorrow.
I
So,
do as well. Yeah.
Saber, it was nice to meet you. Lord,
You
finally,
too.
it was a pleasure. Ari, always good to see you. And everybody, remember to subscribe and upvote. I would love nothing more than to see another productive channel that has a diversity of topics. I think I've tuned into Lord for philosophy, boxing. There were cars. There was trolling. There's been watches. There's been a little bit of football here. So it's a nice diversity of topics. So thank you very much, guys. I'm out.
Thank you, Ali.
Thanks,
See you
Ali.
later.
All the best.
Bye.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's getting close to midnight here on the East Coast, so I'm going to have to go shortly myself. But anyways, all the best. Good. Thank you for having me on again, Lord. I've left you a little something in your PayPal, you know, to help you get going.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Great.
All the best. And
Great.
everyone, upvote, donate. You know, encourage them to continue. All right. It's good to have positive influences in the community. All right. All the best, guys.
See you later.
Saber, nice to meet you.
You
Take
too,
care.
man. See you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And then there were two.
So since we started the topic from the opposite end, do you actually have a watch that you felt like you missed out on and that you should have bought at that time?
The only thing that I've then maybe thought, looking back at where my watch collecting journey is now, is the money that I've spent on the watches that I have now. Should I have just bought a pre-ceramic sub at that time? Or I was looking at a what's the 40mm Explorer 2 reference? 16750, is it?
You mean the Explorer 2?
Yeah, the 40mm.
16570. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at those, and because the thing is, I was in university at the time when I'd started, and I can't remember, but I think they were close to maybe £4,000, and obviously now they're not £4,000. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, should I get one of those? Because again, you know, when you're new to the hobby, Rolex is really one of the ones that you just know, just because it's a high-end watch brand. And yeah, and then I'd kind of done a bit more research, and I'd narrowed it down to that one or the pre-ceramic sub, and then I felt like, actually, that's a lot of money to commit to this at this point. I'm not sure if I want to do it. But again, just like, you know, the mistakes and the ups and downs in life, you know, they make you who you are. So I don't know, would I have still felt the same about certain watches if I'd gotten one of those at the time? I don't know. Like, you know, would I have the attitude that I do have now, that I'm not really that bothered about what I'm wearing in comparison to others? If I'd have gotten that, would I have kind of been playing into what I've said that I'm against? But again, it's one of those things that I just know that I'm somebody who's quite minimalist, and the thing is, at the minute I've got maybe 23 watches, and so I actually just gave two away to my nephews today, because my brother had a baby, and I was like, okay, I'll just do that, and so I gave those two. And yeah, I think the pre-ceramic sub for me is the one that maybe I'd consider. But
Like a 14060 kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like,
yeah.
great.
You know, what is it they refer to it now? Neo vintage.
The no date version, right? Or
Date. I've always used it, right. So and this is another thing that I had a bone of contention between me and that individual. It was just that, you know, he was saying that the no date is so much more symmetrical and all the rest of it. But again, we were talking about watches for utility. So at the minute, in terms of if I've got a dive watch on, I use the date because patient records, a lot of them need to be dated, and it's always just good to look at your wrist as opposed to a computer screen for that. And also the timing bezel, I use it for intervals between patients. So those were my two kind of needs for a watch. That's why I wanted the sub as well, because I knew that I would never go, this is more inconvenient to wear than something else I've got that was less expensive. So yeah, no, definitely date, always date. For me personally.
yeah, for me, I mean, I'm just maybe like your friend, you know. I do love the simplicity and that clean look that a no date two-liner sub has, and that was my first luxury watch, you know, that I actually got through my father, was passed on to me. So for me, I'm sentimentally connected, so I don't really have much of a rational way of explaining it, but I never really had a problem for getting the date to begin with. And I do prefer just having that clean look. And when it's the pre-ceramic submariners, they're also actually much more subtle, especially once you pop out that bracelet, and put it on something else.
I think that's why I prefer the pre-ceramic GMT in comparison to a new one. Because actually, in saying that, I did the guy who I talked to at my AD. The two watches I was considering was a GMT or the sub. The sub actually wore better on me just because I don't have a particularly massive wrist, so that was one factor. But also in terms of pre-ceramic versus ceramic, for the GMT, I much prefer the pre-ceramic because I just feel the new GMT, they're a bit chunky, the indices are a bit big. I think the older one looks a bit more refined, if that's possible. Just to answer Louis' point there, if I can, in terms of how many watches does everybody want, I kind of narrowed it down to 3 per brand, just because I feel like I don't want too many watches that I'm not wearing enough. So I've kind of got Casio, done Seiko, the 3 Rolex, the sub, the pre-ceramic GMT, and a white gold day date, and then I think I would be finished. And then I need to just focus on other things. I think it's a bit of an inconvenient having multiple interests and hobbies.
Well, for me, it's about 8. I mean, I have right now 6 luxury watches and 3 Seikos, basically, and all my Seikos are under 500. I mean, when I bought them, in fact, they were just under 300. But I think in terms of luxury watches, I think 8 is my limit. You know, I have basically one for every day of the week, and then +1 kind of deal. So I wouldn't get more than 2 more. Basically, I have my Rolexes, which I'm pretty happy with. I have my Reverso. I might add something different. Might add another 2 Reversos. Who knows? I have to take my time and think and figure out what I exactly want. But I can't imagine having more than 8.
I was actually just going to ask, just before you mentioned then adding another 2 Reversos, I was going to say, do each watch in your collection fulfill a specific need or have a unique selling point? But then do you just purely buy just, you know, what you feel?
I think it's really a mix of both. I do look, I mean, I do wear my Reverso for a lot of different occasions now. I've only had it for less than 3 months for now, but I don't wait until I put a suit or a sports jacket on until I put that on. I just wear
or any clothes on, for that fact.
Right. I did. You know, we made that point when we had the bare chested stream. I was actually wearing the Reversos. I was like, okay, for those of you who say this watch is not sporty and it's only a dress watch, look, you can wear it bare chested. But joking aside, for me, yeah, I like watches with usable functions. Don't take me wrong. I do sometimes troll by saying like, oh, who needs a watch? Do you check the time on do you set the time? Who cares? Anyway, but when it comes to actually being invested in watches, I love GMTs. I have the GMT Master in the root beer. I have GMT Master 2 in the Coke. I love my Submariner because it's very simple, beautiful, has this all black aesthetic, looks like a different watch in the appropriate, riveted oyster bracelet, looks like something else on a leather band. I love my Datejust. I love it on the Jingly Jangly Jubilee. I love it on a leather strap. The Polar Explorer 2, I think, is just a great watch. It's right from 2000, so it has a solid end-link bracelet. It's my only functional loomed Rolex. And yeah, it's just like, everything strikes a certain tone, but I can't reduce that to just utility, even though I do enjoy their functions as well, their complications, so to speak.
I think for me, I've always just kind of been a stickler that, because I always knew that these are things that are expensive, and I have other hobbies, that I couldn't bring myself to have something that didn't fill a specific need. So that's why even in the Casio stuff, I've got the all metal square. I've got a one of the Casios, and then I've got a gold calculator watch, because I just felt that they were different enough to justify their own sort of place. And I don't know whether it was just maybe OCD, and some people have 4 black bays, or they have a GMT in every different color. But yeah, no, I think maybe that was just a stickler for me when it came to buying things.
This is a good point by Aussie Expert. I feel like having the 116610 LV and 12671 LN feels a little redundant, but whenever I wear them, there's nothing redundant about how it feels. And BK says, I keep my watches as well. I don't sell them. Angelic says, I hand mine to my kids. I missed out on my dad's gold oyster. That's such a shame. I'm sorry. It disappeared after he died. His partner said she never saw it. Aussie Expat says, what a wonderful way to pare down a collection. And Angelic says, I'm just doing what I reckon me and Dad would have dreamt up. 49's Fine says, I'm trying to keep my collection at 6. Alan Gill just sold his Seiko Alpinist. Aussie Expat says, that's cool. To Angelic Slayer, I bought both of my children birth year watches because I would love if I had something like that for myself to remember my dad. I literally have 0 artifacts from him. 49's Fine says, there are too many hobbies out there: knives, cars, guns. Aussie, my gun collection is too utilitarian. Every gun I have is basically a competition gun. I've thought about getting a Select Fire MP5, Aussie Expat says. Aha, you have been comp shooting though, right? I can relate, Aussie. I have nothing but memories of my dad. Yeah, I think that's beautiful, buying your kids birth year watches. Only one. Casio, very minimalist and restrained. Respect. MP5 is awesome. I live in Massachusetts. 49's Fine says, and gun laws are very stringent, but I have mini guns as well.
Well, actually, on the Casio thing, I had 3, and so that's why I gave 2 to my nephews, because I was like, I don't need 3. So,
okay,
yeah,
very cool, very cool.
But yeah, look, I've appreciated the watch chat. I think sometimes it's just, I don't know. There's so many egos in this thing. I don't. This community, yeah, everybody's
out of control. The egos are out of control. Hey, look, I mean, here's the thing. I don't mean to soul read any particular person for this, but I'll tell you this. For people who have never been in the spotlight in their personal or professional life, this must be a very difficult gig.
Yep.
Right. Because if you haven't, first of all, there's a good chance that you will fail, that it will be too much. The pressure will get to you. You'll run out of things to say, this, that, and the other. If you do, however, find a winning formula and you start getting the praise, getting the subscribers, getting the money, it can very easily get into your head. And suddenly, because it's all lights are on you, and everyone is looking at you, everyone is asking questions to you, addressing you, deeming you important, asking for your opinion, it can get into your head. It can get to your head very easily, and the ego then gets out of control, right? If you are never used to being the center of attention in your personal life in one way or another, or in your professional life, it's a very tough gig.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I think what kind of frustrates me is that obviously you get people who come on to Paul's stream, and I make it a habit of calling him Paul, not Archie, just because I don't know. It's always just been Paul to me. But you get like
real name, so it's
yeah,
all right.
yeah. No, it's I feel weird calling him Archie. People come on the stream and like you said, they get like a bit of a following and things like that, and then then other people have criticized Paul for being upset with those who do then either try and take away from his stream or compete in a way, and I've always felt that people don't actually look at it in a fair way, that this is his livelihood, this is how he pays his bills and puts food on the table, and it might be fun and games for you, but it's not for him. So I understand, because nobody's perfect. There's probably things that he himself would even say, I didn't handle that situation the way I could. Look, he apologized to Rolex, just before, and said, look, I shouldn't have done that. But again, at the time,
don't worry, he'll throw him under the bus when it's necessary next time.
But
don't worry.
Again, it's one of those things that it's not fun and games for him. So I can understand why he would get upset and things like that. But then, like you were just saying, for those who then maybe this is a really big deal, it can make them do and say things that they probably wouldn't in real life. And I've always come on, whenever I've come on, I've always talked to people how I would talk to them face to face, because for me it's just, look, it's fun. I mean, it's 5 o'clock in the morning for me. When am I ever going to sit down and have a conversation about watches at 5 o'clock in the morning with people all around the world? It's fun, it's interesting. So I've always tried to do it in a polite and respectful manner, and I just sometimes you don't feel that back again, and it's just a bit frustrating, especially from grown men as well, because let's face it, men talk to each other in a different way than others, because there's always that thing of, hang on, if you annoy me I might just headbutt you, sort of thing. Whereas I mean, what it's like if you talk to a man in person, you kind of have to operate in a certain way, because it always could just he might try and punch me, or I might try and punch him. So
of course, that's why I keep saying, I was talking about this just the other day with the panel members, that the social media has been a disaster for this kind of stuff, because people learn how to talk about greasy shit, behind the keyboard, or like in front of a webcam, and sometimes some people are stupid enough to carry that kind of attitude, or maybe socially awkward or incompetent enough to carry that attitude into
that's
their
the thing. I mean, there's
and they get cracked by something like
Cam as well. Like I've said this to him when he was on. He seems like a nice enough kid. I say kid, he's not that much younger than me, but he said his name. He's come on camera, so everybody knows what he's looked like. He said the city that he lives in. I don't think he said what he's studying. If you really had a problem with someone, you could easily find someone based on that information. And he was saying something to you the other day that I kind of just scoffed at. He was saying something to you, and he went, "Oh, Lord, be a man." And I just thought to myself, listen, like verbally and physically, Lord would wipe the floor with you. So chill out, And it's that thing that everything you do, has consequences. And if he does then specifically want to be a watch dealer, people will remember this. And he's literally saying things that are going to be archived, not only, you know, tangibly on YouTube, but in the minds and hearts of everybody he's talking to. So you have to kind of to say things in a certain way and I think, yeah, like you said, it comes with maturity and experience. And I just don't think people sometimes have that. I mean, look, Mike is a lovely guy, but even he said himself, I'm too open and honest about certain aspects of my life, and you know what the chat can be like. They try and rip people apart if they can. So yeah, I don't know. It's just annoying.
You know, even the person who has the thickest skin has that one off day that they let certain things get to them. But in addition to that, there are a lot of people who have a very thin skin and they get triggered all the time, and then they usually end up taking it out on other people too. So it's just, it can very quickly become a very toxic place in and I don't, you know, again, I don't mean this in a way to blame anything on this community, because I think this is by and large the problem of social media. And I'm not coming from the point of view of, you know, I get very easily offended. No, I'm coming from the point of view that look, it doesn't, like when you're sitting you know, in your kitchen with the lights off and you think, like, you know, you look cool and edgy and tough because it's dark, like, that doesn't impress me. That doesn't
and as an optometrist, that doesn't do any favors on your eyes either.
If you want to say the same kind of thing to my face, I'll fold you like a lawn chair in real life. So to me, that's the point I'm coming from. If you're gonna talk to me a certain way, whether it's like, you know, racist, ethnic, or anti-Semitic invective, or you want to make fun of you know, my looks that you don't like, you can say it to my face. You know, I'm happy to exchange information and meet up if you like. But if you say it on the internet, and then when I respond in kind, you are trying to say I'm getting triggered, that's not it. I don't get offended. I'm just trying to, you know, put you in your place so you learn more civilized behavior. And if you don't, I will take certain measures. You know, so my point is that you don't be toxic unless you can, you know, make true on all these things that you are saying, right? Be toxic if you want to take it to the real world. Be toxic if you want to actually, you know, realize that, actually attack someone, actually, you know, call people names, you know, say, you know, if you're a man, you would do this, you would do that. And it was funny to me for that particular occasion, because I think, you know, I thought about this and I repeated this a number of times. The only reason that I wasn't calling Watch Nicholas my friend is because I had a very simplistic conception about it. I don't know him in real life. I've never interacted with him face to face. I like what he's saying on his channel. I think the core of his argument and the way he homed in on certain people and issues was absolutely right. I like him. I can't call him my friend because I don't know him, but I like him. And when I thought about it, hey, I interact with people online quite a bit these days, and some people I do like, and I guess I can call them friends, but I'm not gonna sit through an interrogation on someone else's platform, you know, trying to explain to you why I defend Watch Nicholas, right? Come to my channel. We can talk about why I like him, what I like about him, but don't tell me, you know, don't tell me that, like, you know, what your friend does this, your friend does that. First of all, I mean, people are responsible for themselves, and they can explain themselves. They don't need me to defend them. But anyway, it's just, yeah, toxicity is for me, I don't mind it, because like you said, it's when men talk to each other, there is a certain toxicity. But usually there's consequences to that toxicity, so it kind of regulates itself in real life. The internet, there are none of the checks and balances that reels it in, that brings everything back to reality.
I think people are far too eager to be argumentative and just generally rude to each other, rather than just kind of, look, it's pretty obvious that when I had that exchange with Tim, and I was a little bit embarrassed afterwards, because I rewound like 3 minutes, and I was like, yeah, kind of obvious that I got annoyed then. And and that's why I came on and I was like, Lord, was I a bit silly with what I said? Just because, look, we're here for fun, really. This is a hobby at the end of the day. We do it because it makes us happy, and it takes us away from maybe some of the more monotonous things that we have to put up with in life, working, paying bills, seeing people we don't like maybe on a day-to-day basis. So I don't want this to ever be something that makes me feel annoyed. And so that's why it's irritating when you think, hang on a minute, you're in it for the same reasons I am, or at least I'd think you are, to have fun, to have a laugh, to talk to other people about a common interest. So why then are you so ready to be rude or to be snappy with someone?
But it comes back to that idea again. I think sometimes people are here to prove something to themselves. People are here to lash out at other people. People are here to vent out their frustrations and gain control over their life that they don't have elsewhere.
In reality, yeah.
So Aussie, by the way, Aussie has this Discord community for everyone. No strings attached. No, no agenda. It's very lightly moderated, so everything goes watch related, and it does have also sections that are not watch related. So if you scroll back, you'll see Aussie's link, and you can post it again, Aussie, since you have a wrench. But I just wanted to highlight that all are welcome, as he said. 49 Fine says, I'll check it out. Angelic says, my daughter says I shouldn't watch Arch. I went away for 3 years and came back, and she laughed. She says it's toxic. I say, yeah, I was toxic before these guys. Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, if it helps you, like Saber said, if your intention is to have fun, to relax, to just talk about watches at some ungodly hour of the morning, it's the right place. And that can actually, if you know how to regulate yourself, you will be fine in this community. It's sometimes people need to be checked.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
It's just a shame, because it takes away from the fun of it. And like this whole thing, and yeah, I don't know, it's just annoying, that's all. Especially, like, I think for me it's a reflection of, look, everybody's circumstances are going to be their circumstances, but for me, especially when a man is so eager to be argumentative, I just think, what have you actually gone through in your life? So like you said, look, you've got a background in boxing, so you know what it's like to get hit, and you know what it's like to hit somebody. That in the street, if somebody starts arguing or whatever, and you punch them and they fall and hit the head on the concrete, that's potentially going to kill someone. And so you avoid that situation, and the people who don't fight as often, or maybe don't know what a human can do to one another, they are the ones who are most eager to throw a punch, because they don't have it. And I just think, look, there's more things, there's better things in life than feeling like you've won an argument, or feeling like you've won an argument in front of an audience. Just, take it easy, chill out. We're all here just to talk about watches. I don't know, maybe I just don't take things as seriously.
We're talking about argument in the purest sense of the word, where you are actually presenting like legitimate, nuanced positions, and at the end of the day, we are at least working ourselves towards some notion of truth, or at least getting better grasp at our positions, fine. But for the most part, those so-called arguments on YouTube about watches or elsewhere, you know, on other parts of the YouTube too, they're just about egos. There's very little substantive information shared in that moment. So
because that's when I felt at that point. I felt like he reacted that way because he felt like I was taking a slight at him, not because he was. But like, so for example, right, on Archie's stream, like when we've like had a back and forth, and even now on yours, you've said I'll agree with you in this way and I'll disagree with you in this way. You've not said, listen, fuck you, I disagree with what you're saying, but you know, and you appreciate it. I mean, look, you might disagree with each other on certain things, but you do it in a manner, because at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. You're not that bothered if I prefer the date sub to a no date. You're not going to lose sleep over it, you know.
And I'm learning also. I'm learning from you, and I'm trying to clarify why I think the way I do. Right, when it comes to, of course, when it comes to the no date sub, there's not much to clarify. You know, at the end of the day, it's just about the feeling. You know, it's not really. I can retrospectively justify that feeling. I can try to rationalize it, but at the end of the day, I like it because I like it.
Aussie expat. It was essentially, I said that I was saying during a conversation about resale value in the grey market and stuff. I basically said that some of the people who criticize the you know, the hassle around getting watches and, you know, people need to chill out, they only own hype watches themselves. And Tim said that's only because you can't get one at retail. That's why you feel like that. When you get your sub, you'll feel differently. And yeah, he kind of said it in a way that I didn't really feel like he was probably a counterpoint. It was more of like I'm just going to say something because I think you're saying it, having a go at me sort of thing. Despite the fact that I've told him I've already bought a Rolex at retail, and it wasn't even for me; it was for somebody else. So yeah, and then I was just thinking, I haven't got a problem with Tim. It was a bit frustrating. That was all. He'll probably watch this and say, Saber was talking shit about me on Lord Stream.
No, it's not. It's not going to be. One of the things that I keep promising people, and I hold to that promise, is like one of the things I hated about certain other streams that I've been on, except for the Archie Luxury stream, is they had the tendency to become Tim Wright hate channel, and completely forgot why they were there in the first place, which is to produce again authentic content, new content. You know, you can't build an entire channel or movement just hating on someone else. You have to at least blend it with something different. So my aim for this channel is always to make sure that it doesn't become you know, a hate channel on someone else, and much less Tim, whom I still consider a friend. I want to just catch up with some of the earlier comments. A date complication on a dive watch, frivolous. Bruce G, Lord and OC are the more cerebral members of the community, which we need. Thank you, Bruce G. I appreciate the kind words. Angelic Slayer says, I've become a Rolex sports watch hater just for kicks. I think we need some of those haters in the community because everyone else is already crazy about it. Aussie Expat says, I will personally bully everyone who gets a no-date sub so that Rolex can free up resources for the good sports watches. Alan Gill says, Archie's Seiko Alpinist review still kills me to this day. If you don't want a Cyclops, you'll never be a friend of mine. Okay. Jimmy says, one of the benefits of growing older is the ability to learn from one's mistakes and to not let things get under one's skin, to have less piss and vinegar and sit back and evaluate.
Well, that's the thing. I actually feel bad. Like, I had an argument with him. I actually feel bad about it. Like, that's not what I came here to do. But I think I've been absolved of that feeling now after this hour and 45 minutes.
The old Arch reviews where he explodes, Angelic Slayer says, on some poor dude that spent 100K on a collection, Archie Gold. Bruce G says, agree with your sentiments. Not easy to stay calm when Bear defends Russia, though. Yeah, I mean, look, that's the that's also the challenge, right? We all face this on YouTube or on other parts of the life. It's easy to be calm and relax when you're having, you know, friendly chatter or banter, and when
Yeah.
you're being, for the most part, it's much harder to be in the same space with people with whom you have disagreements, but still some mutual respect.
Yep.
I think that's much more difficult. Alan Gill says, I really like Tim Wright's Explorer review. I wished he went back to that type of content, walks in New York and watch reviews. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, when he was in Central Park, yeah.
What goes around comes around. Loose Tooth says, Wash Nicholas is doing a great job. An Aussie expat says, as best as I can gather, WN Wash Nicholas has done nothing wrong. If what he reveals is embarrassing, it's because what those people did is embarrassing. He's not fabricating anything. And finally, Alan says, I left the TV on once and went to check the mail. I came back to find my kids standing in front of the TV listening to Archie screaming. What the heck is this, Dad? I replied, Jerry Springer. It's similar. It's similar. Yeah, Bruce G says, I left blah, blah, blah because of all the Tim hate. Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. And at some point, the dungeon was becoming the same too, but finally it didn't go in that direction. So I'm very happy.
Well, that's the thing. You'd think if you really dislike someone that much, you wouldn't want to talk about them. So how much does it just become, you know, like a bunch of teenage girls just wanting to bitch about somebody? Just leave it. There's more to life. Just leave it. I don't understand why you get so much hate in the first place. I think some people just, you know, they see people in a position of attention and just nitpick. You know, it is what it is.
I don't actually get a lot of hate, by the way. Just yeah, I think there was only one or two instances, and those were very specific. I don't whatever goes on in the chat, usually I don't care much. You know, there are a lot of people in the chat who say a lot of stuff, but when people you know, come on a panel with you and just try to pick on you and try to bully you, you have to respond in kind. I never sulk and go away. You know, Bear put it actually wonderfully. I think he has a very good read on me, honestly, and I'm not just saying this because I like him and because he's good to me, but when he said, for example, that you know, to people who give him love, he gives love about me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he actually meant to say as well that, you know, to people who give him hate, he returns in kind. I think that's what he wanted to say, but he wanted to keep things positive. And I completely agree with that. You know, that I'm not gonna take things lightly if someone is explicitly targeting me to my
Mm-hmm.
face on a panel. Like you can't do that. You are not gonna get away with that. I'm gonna make sure that I in fact, you know, if you think that you can get under my skin or insult me with a word, I'm a wordsmith. You know, I can dance around you with that kind of stuff, and I will also expose you. So, you know, tread carefully when you try to deal with.
That's why I felt the need to say, what is your point you're trying to make here? Because I felt like, no, he's just only said that because he thought I was targeting him, and he's tried to, you know, deliver a put down, not oh, I'll counter your point with this. It was a put down, and I'm not here for that. I don't voluntarily have a conversation with people just, you know, for someone to, you know, have a go at you. That's not what I'm about. And plus, like you said, I would never speak to anybody like that, so I don't appreciate having that back. Aussie
Expat says, people hate me for having small wrists and defending the 36mm Explorer. Yeah, I'm missing Joe Farmer. I'm missing smoking Joe Farmer, who wants to come here and troll on people for having a 36mm Explorer. Angelic Slayer, I've gravitated to you over Tim because I actually like listening to your content. Tim is okay, but he's not Arch. I think we all have our niche and all have our strengths. I don't mind running a show at the same time as anyone else. Any thoughts on the pre-owned watch market? Is it a slight correction, or are we headed towards a crash? Oh yeah, Joyce here. He says, "Girl size Explorer." What do you think about this question, Saber?
I don't know. Obviously, everybody. I'm not a dealer by any stretch. I just think, yeah, with the general economic climate, things were kind of slowing down. I think, you know, the watch market benefited from the absence of people going on holidays, the absence of, you know, a lot of hospitality not being available. People were thinking, hang on a minute, I've not gone on holiday, I've not gone to buy that car. What else is there? Oh, I'll buy a watch. You know, again, like it kind of was a mixture of other things. Watch collecting as a hobby got pushed further into the mainstream with, you know, again, a lot of young men now are going out seeing their favorite influencers and all the rest of it, you know, showing watches. And or is that something there's, I mean, like, so for example, right, football, you know, the Rio Ferdinand, the former
Oh yeah.
defender. Yeah, so he has his own YouTube channel called Vibe with Five. Another former United player, Kieran Richardson, is now a watch dealer. Now they've just started a watch show called Ballers and Watches on their channel.
I had no idea. Like,
So
I didn't even know. Look, I mean, that shows us how, you know, I was talking about Archieverse, right? That shows us how sometimes we are of a one-track mind and such self-enclosed community that we don't even know what's going on in the rest of the YouTube.
And it's funny that like on that programming specific, like, well, program YouTube episodes, right, that they show, because obviously that Kieran Richardson, you know, he deals in high-end watches and blah blah, and his other co-host is this other guy, and he'll say, you know, oh, the watch is 35,000, and he'll go, and then Kieran will say, but you can't buy it for that, and he'll go, and the other co-host is like, what are you talking about? You can't buy it for that. And even the idea that, oh, you have to pay over retail for it, and he's like, no, it's, I think, I can't remember what it was. I think it was it was a white dial 5711, and he's like, yeah, but it was that, but it's going for, you know, whatever amount. And the co-host was like, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous. But again, you know, these are football fans. It's something that, you know, it's becoming more mainstream. So I think it was just a perfect storm. The watch market was a perfect storm of things.
That's the funny thing, you know, that I was listening to your points, and I was going to sum up by saying, you know, it was the perfect storm. So I don't even need to add anything. I think you counted basically most of what drove the watch market, and we were talking about it yesterday too. It's, I think, one, you said pandemic, people had a lot of money to spend and not much to do. People had a lot of easy money as well during the pandemic. A lot of real or imagined liquidity, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Social media started occupying even more of our life.
Mm-hmm.
And in social media, I think flex culture has taken things to such a different level that nowadays, as you said, it's like it's not the time for barnyard finds. We were talking earlier about Harrods. I mean, this is a point that you brought up, right? You know, they eye the customer who might be sloppily dressed but has a luxury watch on, and there's actually a point for that, because you can go to a thrift store and put together a great outfit, especially if you have a decent tailor. But you can't really, in year 2022, you can't thrift a watch, right? You can't thrift a luxury watch. It's just not possible. You would have to find an estate sale where people really don't know what's going on. Nowadays, everyone is globally aware of what is going on in the watch market, and it's just like, you know, a couple of keywords away for them, the market value. So we live we live at a time where a lot of different factors colluded and created the perfect condition for the watch market. And now some of those legs that were holding up this I guess this recent upsurge or expansion, some of the legs that are holding up that plate are getting are not maybe broken, but they're getting loose. You know, they're staggering. They might break. The economy seems to be tanking. The stock market seems to be heading towards a crash. There's wars, in fact, that are going on.
Plus, do you maybe think it's a bit of fatigue as well from certain enthusiasts? Because if we're looking at maybe the timescale of what's happening, I mean, the UK, we went into the first full proper lockdown, I think February of 2020. You know, best part of 2 years, best part of 2 and a bit years. If you've maybe been looking for a watch and then, you know, saving up that money, if you saw the price kept going up and up and up, maybe you've just given up or gotten out of the hobby, in and out. And then so there's less buyers. The demand is less, the supply is the same. You know, law of prices, it's going to go down.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, by the way, that at the end of the day, I think there will be some correction rather than an outright crash, unless there is a bigger recession coming. At the end of the day, the lockdowns are not the same now. The easy money is gone. People who may have lost their jobs, people who have lost their loved ones, are only now perhaps starting to take account of those, financial and personal losses. And I think we're just heading towards a different time. So there is going to be a correction, but as long as the immense disproportion between very strict supply and outsized demand doesn't change, I don't think a crash would really happen anytime soon. There needs to be a bigger recession for that.
I can't see it getting to the point where it was 4 or 5 years ago. It'll be a dip and nothing more than a dip. Yeah. And again, actually, that would be interesting. Do you think you'd see maybe people would actually sell watches because the value had gone down? You know, the people I'm talking about in terms of who just have it purely because of the value. If it was less worth, then it would be worth less than they thought it would. Will they just get rid because it didn't hold that status anymore?
I think that's I think that part wouldn't be actually a great loss for the community, honestly. Again, I've said this yesterday too. I don't wish financial ruin on anyone.
Yeah.
Even people I don't like. I don't want anyone to lose money, because at the end of the day, when people suffer economically, a lot of just a lot of terrible things happen, man. I mean, it's I don't want to dramatize it too much, but I'm sure many people have at least watched Big Short to get some understanding of that, right? When the housing market collapses, it's not only that people lose their homes, they lose their jobs, they lose their homes, and in this godforsaken country, that means they also don't have health insurance, which means that they die, right? And they die from things that could have easily been taken care of, if only they had health insurance, and if only they could have some social net that could hold them up and that could take care of them, right? So it's a horrible scenario to even contemplate that level of recession or depression that would make us worry the least about our watches. But until that happens, I think all we are going to see is some legitimate correction. People who have both hype watches for purely investment value are probably going to pull out of them as soon as possible in the next opportunity. And that in itself would not be such a great loss, honestly.
Mhm.
Yeah, Aussie Expat says, I've loved the movie. I could see how for most people it's not a good movie. It's very accurate. You know, it actually, I forgot the names of characters, but this, what you're describing, Aussie, is actually a scene basically in the movie. You remember when Brad Pitt's character is mentoring those young guys who get a little too giddy about the money they have just made on the market crash. And he tells them off saying, like, you know, do you realize that you are basically celebrating on other people's catastrophe? And that's the movie, right? So it is a good movie, but it's not the kind of movie that should make you feel good, so to speak, because the consequences or the problems and issues that it puts his finger on are just soul crushing. Jimmy says, markets hate uncertainty until inflation subsides and the war plays out, volatility will continue. Joe Money, watch market is being manipulated by dealers hoarding and price fixing. I think this will correct big time. Joe, you're right. Look, I think I really wish that there was a genuine watchdog for this industry, because a lot of what certain gray market dealers do at least borders on being illegal. I don't know the fine print. You know, I'm not an attorney. I haven't looked into it, but you know, the way certain watches get passed around and gaining value, you know, being marked up, let's say, in every transaction, for me, that it feels like that can't be legal. Is that even legal? As Archie asks, I don't think that can be legal.
Well, I mean, let's face it, in a lot of the hot stuff, in terms of actually being rare, they're not rare. Like, have you seen the pictures on Instagram and people have cases of Hulks and they have cases of pandas and they'll have their arm full and it'll be, these aren't rare things. It's just, I mean, you know,
they're being hoarded. Yeah,
they're being hoarded, and let's face it, I would not be surprised if, you know, a lot of these dealers, you know, they have a contact to the AD and things go out through the back door, at least the side door anyway.
Of course. I mean, it's usually they are smart enough to work it out in another country and basically cover their tracks. But yes, of course, a lot of gray market dealers get things through the back door from authorized dealers. Jimmy says, markets hate uncertainty until inflation subsides and okay, sorry, I read this one. Inflation will take a long time to beat, 5 years. Big problem, inflation. Jay Gray says 5 years is optimistic. Aussie Expat says, agreed, they're full cartel mode right now, zero buying, only offloading. Ellen Gill, 32K US dollars for a Hulk right now, according to CRM. Aussie Expat says, very big short style. They just keep the prices up even as the asset class has tanked. Ellen Gill, and on David SW. You got to say it 3 times, Aussie. Yes. SW, David SW, David SW. Otherwise, he won't show up in your bank. Guys, we just passed the 2-hour mark. We're going to go for another hour, where at least I'm going to go for another hour. and it's lovely to have you in the chat. It's great to have your questions. You're helping us guide the conversation, create some more content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Smash the like button. I need all the upvotes. Every vote counts, as I try to gain some more exposure and reach 1,000 subscribers. Until then, if you want to support me in creating new and original content, help me buy some equipment so I can go out in Los Angeles and film. And not only the usual suspects, I think the boutiques are usually played out. So unless something special, I'm not planning that. But I do want to go to places like, Joshua Shapiro's workshop, for example. You may have heard of J.N. Shapiro Watches, where he does a lot of interesting engine turning work. That could be an interesting trip for us and a good video to make. There are a lot of interesting strap makers in Los Angeles. I think to pay a visit to one of their workshops could be interesting. Anyway, so if you want to encourage me and if you want to help me out to create new content for the channel, you can always consider making a PayPal donation at lordhellespontv@gmail.com. That's lordhellespontv@gmail.com. I also have a Cash App, which is $LHVVV. $LHVVV. Right. I was thinking of the one that got away today, so I'm just gonna share something. This is not exactly the watch I missed out on, but when I first arrived in Los Angeles, this was 2015. I was just trying to find another no date sub so I could kind of retire, my father's sub.
Mhm.
I decided against this idea anyways, but that was for years. For years I didn't get another sub, even though I had a lot of good deals coming my way because I already had one and I had the best one, right? Again, I'm a fundamentalist when it comes to this no date sub, 4-digit, can't get any better. But at that time, I started looking around. I started going to the jewelry district. I started going to other, vintage watch specialists, and I said, okay, why don't I get like an 80s 5513? You already have the glossy dial, you have the white surrounds, your white gold surrounds over the plots, and they're a better deal than some of the older stuff, and I think they have more charm and more of the vintage appeal that my sub already has. So let's try to find something like this. And I actually came across in a jeweler in downtown with something like this. That was just a watch head, right? It didn't have a bracelet like this one has. It was in decent condition, the head. Let's see, very much like this, sharp enough case. The of course plastic crystal, so it was a little scratched, but you can even buff it out with like standard toothpaste. So it's very, very easy. And I turn it around and I see an engraving and I'm like, fuck, why did you have to ruin this watch like that? And even though I saw the Olympic reference and whatever else, it didn't have a name in this case. It just had these 3 lines: 1984 U.S. Olympic Yachting Team. I didn't make much sense of it, and it was actually, for just a watch head at the time, it was a little too expensive, or so I thought. And the dealer was just not negotiating, right? He basically said, this is my last price, take it or leave it. And I left it. I walked out. But, as Aussie Expat was saying earlier, sometimes a certain watch just makes its way kind of crawls into your skull and just starts poking on your brain. And this was that. So I started doing some research, started pulling up all these pictures and videos and stories. And finally, I came across the story that, hey, someone was actually talking about how for the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles, the yachting team was issued a 5513 on a NATO strap, right? So in fact, that's how that watch was supposed to come, right? I'm sure this dealer matched their example with a period correct bracelet, but they were actually issued that way. And then I was able to find the footage of the US team racing in 84 Olympics, and I could see that they were wearing Submariners on I noticed at least one or two, that were on a NATO strap. And of course, like, the next day I woke up early, I basically ran, downtown, and it was gone.
Oh.
He had already sold it. And it's the funny thing is, again, I don't really care about the birth year watch, but this does happen to be my birth year. I am in Los Angeles. It's the U.S. Olympics, and when it comes to the sub, and you're a Submariner man, so you know this, that a lot of what we associate with that watch is about its provenance, right? It doesn't belong to us, perhaps, but the idea that this watch was actually made for something more adventurous, more dynamic, and something sportier than desk diving, it makes it all the more charming. And if that is actually what that particular Submariner was used for, that makes it even more interesting and more appealing. And I missed out on that, and I missed out on a lot of good deals financially. But the fact that I missed out on owning a second Submariner that would have some sort of provenance, that still hurts me to this day.
Would you have won this watch?
After I understood it, I think I would have made the other decision. Actually, I would probably say, hey, I will actually keep wearing my dad's watch
And
more
retire this one.
and retire this one. Yeah. But anyway, so there are some interesting watches out there that are still not prohibitively expensive. I mean, this one, when I just saw it as a watch head, it was either 4K or 4,500.
Mm-hmm.
And more recently, these guys sold something similar for 4 times that price, basically. And I'm sure next time someone turns this around, it'll be even more expensive. But still, once every so often, you can come across something that someone is selling and they don't exactly know what it is, because that jeweler, honestly, they didn't really know what they had in their hand. Because even then, they would have probably asked even more for it. It was really just an overpriced watch head for them. They really didn't quite realize what it was, and neither did I. So I missed out on it in the first place.
All this talk about pre-ceramic subs has made me think about a pre-ceramic sub.
Yeah.
Right, so I mean, in terms of the pre-ceramic GMT, I narrowed it down to one between 2000 and 2002 because it's kind of the golden configuration for me. It's solid end links, drilled lugs, and I don't know if it's Luminova or Super Luminova. So it's it's got usable lume, and then it just, for me, I don't know. I haven't handled many pre-ceramic watches, and I just didn't know whether the bracelet would be up to task of being a kind of one and done potentially.
Well, first of all, I think I would start with this. If you think that even might be a concern, you should, I think, look for watches right around the turn of the century, basically, right? Look for something at least late 1999, 2000, that has a bracelet with solid end links.
Right.
Even if on the back of your mind simply that you're thinking, could this be a concern? Well, why not save yourself the time, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, you can. Some people enjoy it. People like me. For me, it's about the search. It's about the journey. I love looking through watches. I love examining different examples. I love that. For me, that's as much as enjoyable as owning the watch.
Yeah.
But if you want to save yourself some time, just look for watches right around 2000, because then you will have something with a solid end link bracelet, and that does have a feel that's closer to a contemporary Rolex, not the same, but closer to that than a vintage Rolex.
Yeah. Yeah, because my other then point was that in terms of buying a new watch as opposed to something that was, pre-owned, is that it was mine from its creation, and I was the very first owner. And for the first watch, I would want something that I was the very first owner. But then I don't know whether I'm maybe being a bit picky and I'm asking for circumstances that ultimately, after I bought the watch, I wouldn't actually have cared about. Like you said, in terms of the journey, if I buy a watch that, I enjoyed the searching for it, me not being its first owner, would I actually feel that was important? I don't know. Have you ever bought a watch and actually been that bothered about how many people had it before you?
I never had that problem, but I do understand. Look, for me, for example, for me, it's the opposite, right? My irrational feeling about it, and Archie put this beautifully when he was talking about his Reverso Grand Dates. He was saying, I want a watch that an average person can't go into the boutique and buy, right?
Yeah.
I want something out of production, damn it. So for me, that's the irrational feeling. That's why why I like good examples of vintage watches, because they are harder to find, because they involve an investment of time, because they involve some research, and when you get there, you feel, in fact, you deserve it, right? And you know better. It is what it is, right? I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible. But that's my irrational feeling. Someone else's irrational feeling, which I might respect, is that, hey, I want to peel off the stickers myself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you want me to walk out with this, all stickers peeled and sized for me? Give me the watch at least. I'll peel it off in front of you. I want to be the first. I understand that. I respect that. It's not what I'm looking for. But again, you can only know that when you actually do it. I took the plunge with the Reverso because I was thinking, like, what will happen? I'm just not used to this kind of watch. Is it really for me? Because there's so much, when you like watches, there's so many watches that you do admire from far, that you like to see on others, that you appreciate at some level. But somehow in the back of your mind, they're not for you. They're not for you. So you can have a similar feeling about vintage watches, but I think you have to try it at least once. And if you have a friend, who is generous enough, maybe you will give that friend a few things or a couple of watches, and that friend will give you his vintage watch, and maybe you can wear it around for a couple of weeks, because that's the only way to know. That's really the only way to know.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you should say that, because that viewpoint of the search and appreciating what it is for its own quality as opposed to its ability, objectively, it's a new watch, the seals will be better or blah, 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 blah. I don't think that way about cars. I prefer older cars to new. Like, I would prefer an early 2000s BMW M3 as opposed to a new one, even though the new one is going to be far better. So I don't. That's interesting. That's the first time I've thought about that. Yeah, like you said, I think I maybe need to then go and have a look, because if that's the case, the watch I've always dreamed of and the one that I wanted to buy initially when I started getting was a pre-ceramic GMT. The only reason I was going to potentially get the sub first is because it was new from the AD and I didn't like the new GMT. But then maybe do I just go for the pre-ceramic GMT first and foremost?
Ozzy says, it's never bothered me for a moment that one of mine is pre-owned. That's his Hulk. Oh, I know why they sold the Hulk to me. They were offered a blue Sky Dweller. I saw the photos. Alan says, most of my collection is pre-owned. I'm fine with it. The Blue Z was brand new. Yeah, I prefer pre-owned watches. I like to imagine the various scenarios that causes a person to sell their watch. Never occurs to me they're flipping to buy another watch. More recently, I think that scenario happens quite a bit.
Right. It's been a pleasure. I think I better get off. It's 6 a.m. where I am.
Oh, yeah. Are you going to get any sleep or?
Yeah, I'll get a bit of sleep. I'm off tomorrow anyway, so that's why I pushed myself. Yeah. Cool. Well, it was nice talking to you. And
hey,
good luck on your Sorry, go on.
No. Thank you for being here. It's always much better when I have someone on board, when I have a panelist.
Not to worry. Right. Take it easy, everyone, and I'll speak to you again soon. See you later.
You're saver.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. All right, guys. It's just me for the moment. The link is pinned there. I'll catch up with some of the chats that I've not been able to read. Ozzy says, I've contemplated selling my 2021 to my friend who had his first child last year, but he just didn't seem interested in the whole idea. If he had been trying to go to the AD, etc., I would have. Angelic says, thanks. This is the Pepsi. I've never bought a new watch. It might be fun to buy for that experience at the AD, but I like old things. I'm the same. I am contemplating this this Sea Dweller 43, and purportedly, they might be able to get me one before the end of the year, but I don't know. Maybe it's just not in the cards for me. Maybe I don't care enough. I never pulled the trigger. Once every so often, there was one modern watch that I would be interested in, and I constantly end up talking myself out of the purchase. I end up seeing one or two things I don't like about it, and then once I start, peeking into that, it's like an old sock. It starts unraveling. Ozzy says, AD is shit. I see the white box. It goes on the wrist, credit card, swipe. Yeah, I think the luxury experience doesn't really exist in watch purchases anymore, except when I got my 5-digit sub. 5-digit GMT. This one, which actually came as a full set, and of course on its band and everything. The jeweler in San Diego that I bought it from just treated me like a king. They served me tea and brought out all the candies, and they they gave me the Red Book of Rolex, you know, the one that was originally written in Danish, but that has somehow become a very common reference, even though Ozzy knows that it's riddled with misinformation and just altogether silly purple prose. But hey, it's a nice coffee table book, and it was just a great gesture for them to just give me an extra gift as part of the purchase. I think you will be treated better at this point in these sorts of family establishments than a luxury store. Ozzy says, I also bought Tudor Omega. Those were shipped FedEx to my home. Alan Gill says, my AD experience was fantastic, champagne, but I did ask them to make it special because my wife was going to be there. Yeah, I think, look, for the most part, if you take the initiative, they do make it more special, for sure. And usually if you come in as a couple, they do treat you a little differently. And if you tell them in advance, then that's a sure bet. And a lot of the luxury stores, not the watch stores, not the ADs, but a lot of the luxury stores these days, after the pandemic at any rate, they take appointments. So when you make an appointment, when you're specific about the purpose of your appointment, and you know that you're bringing someone in, I mean, if you make an appointment at Hermes, you know, because you're coming in with your mother and you wanna get her a Mother's Day gift, trust me that they are going to blow some smoke up your backside for sure. You know, so you tell them, they do treat you right, but I think most authorized dealers just don't care enough. And yeah, it's really as we mentioned before, you know, when Ozzy was here at the beginning, at this point when they sell you a Rolex at list price, they're basically giving you free money. So if anything, they expect to be rewarded in some way. They expect to be thanked in some way. And I don't think it's that outrageous actually to give them something little, you know, a whiskey, a bottle of wine, you know, some desserts, pastries, you know, whatever you think is convenient. Alan Gill says, I don't think it would have happened if I hadn't asked. You're probably right. Can I retell your Hermes strap story? Did you just go in, or did you call your SA to inquire about available strap choices and then go in? From the emojis, I can't understand, because I also don't have one Hermes strap story. That's one of the things that I just buy. And I make an appointment with my sales associate. She usually knows that I'm there for one or two things. One is you know, watch straps, and the other thing is the haute cologne, haute orange verte, right? You know, that's the classic Hermes cologne that I end up buying in the biggest size they have. And I go through it, like, you know, for the next year and a half or something. Yeah, so I go in, they take me to the watch section, and then they pull off the trays and boxes, and I just rummage through everything, and I see if there's something that I like, something that fits my watch, which I usually bring in. And if it doesn't, they can order it, they can put in a special order, and there's no upcharge as long as it is something they usually have in stock. What do we have here earlier? 1996 was that's Atlanta, was the last good Olympics before Australians ruined it in 2000 by making it so insanely commercial. Coming from an Australian, of course, this is an interesting viewpoint on the commercialization of Olympics. Well, 2004 was disastrous for Athens, for example, because they ended up spending way too much money on it without getting much of it back in any way. And that was, I hesitate to say that that had much to do with the series of economic crises to come in Greece, but it couldn't have helped the way they just couldn't reel back from it. When we were talking, of course, about that 1984 5513 sub that I was showing as an example of what I missed out on, no date sub. Ficaronis, Angelic Slayer says, Jimmy says this sub is beautiful. It was a beauty for sure. And what else do we have here? No date subs are for punters that can't get a date. Yeah, that was Archie's line when he had 14060. He was basically telling people just to fike around with them, like, that, oh, I got this because I couldn't afford the one with dates. Alan Gill says that's a beauty. Could have been worse. Could have had a Domino's logo on it. Could have been a Panerai, Angelic Slayer says. Aussie Expat says, I want that Jimmy John's Daytona. Hey man, desk diving is a respectable way to earn a living. Hey, it is. It's at least in part my way, so I'm not going to disrespect it. But it's not necessarily the most adventurous or dynamic one. I guess we can agree on that much. Alan Gill says, I'm a 1980 baby. I love the idea of earning a birth year watch. But when I search that date, I can't narrow it down. Then I get bored and move on. There's so many great watches in the 80s. Yeah, that would be a difficult choice to make, honestly. Alan Gill. All right, we read this. Greece went broke after those Olympics. Alan Gill says, I remember that, yes. J617 says, thank you. Does Hermes regularly stock 20 millimeter in multiple color and material offerings, or is it a special request purchase? They have at least half a dozen in a tray, and if you're a little insistent, a little persistent, I should say, perhaps, they can get you the product code for the ones that are for 20 millimeter lug width, and they taper down to 17. So you probably will end up having to get their buckle for it as well. That product code is T-104. So if you really want to be pedantic about it, you can go in, and once they sit you down in the watch section, you can ask for T104. But if you simply say that, here's my watch, the lug width is 20 millimeters. If I want to see what you have in terms of straps in different material and textures and styles, they will bring out a tray of some sort. That's what I was served when I first went in for this purpose. And because that will only have 6 or 8, you will have to say, well, do you have something else? Do you have maybe something in the back? And yeah, ultimately they will bring out whatever they have, and if they don't, they usually have a book where they have all the different styles and sizes and leathers and colors, and you can show them that. You just have to insist. If you know what you want, they will give it to you. That's how it works. You know, that's why there's still so much in Hermes that never makes it to the website, that will never get sold on their website. Full on John says, my one that got away is the Diet Pepsi, right? This is the Tudor, both the 79733N with champagne dial instead, because Diet Pepsi was a 6-month wait on bracelet in January 2021. I will get it someday. Well, wear your 79733N in good health, my friend, and I hope you can get the Diet Pepsi still. At least it's not something that has completely gotten away from you. Alan Gill says, can't love the BB58 and not like a no-date sub. Yeah, that's an interesting conundrum, isn't it? That is an interesting conundrum. Guys, we have another 20 or 30 minutes to go. So if you have been watching and enjoying the show, but haven't upvoted yet, please hit that like button. It helps a great deal. It helps me gain more exposure. And everything you can do for me, you know, watching my other videos, liking them, spreading the word, sharing the link, that is invaluable to me as I edge towards 1,000 subscribers, as I'm making my way toward monetization. In the meantime, if you want to encourage me to create new content, create more content, create content that requires different kinds of equipment, you can always make a contribution on PayPal, which is lordhellespontv@gmail.com. That is lordhellespontv@gmail.com. I also have a Cash App, which is connected to $LHVVV, $LHVVV. Ali says the watch hours are brutal. Actually, you know, my watch hours are doing great. They're, well, proportionally, they are way ahead now compared to my subscriber numbers. So I think I will make it to 4,000 watch hours before I make it to 1,000 subscribers. Smoking Joe Farmer, how are you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, Lord?
Welcome back. Nice to see you, man. Jay says, thank you. I haven't been to Hermes in over 5 years. I bought my ex a Cape Cod watch and had to try on all the additional straps. The experience was traumatizing. She didn't want the Rolex. Like me dead. Yeah, I understand. There are some stores that I used to go to with one of my exes, and I don't like going back to those stores. So I understand that experience may have been spoiled, but I hope you can gain it back. Hey, what are you drinking?
All the same rat piss I usually drink.
Yeah, the non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Memorial Day. That way I can crack open an actual beer.
Is that what you told yourself? That's the goal, to go on to
Not
Memorial?
primarily holidays is when I'll drink. I might sneak in like a 6-pack every now and then during the summer, but yeah, primarily during holidays.
So we had a Aussie. I think it was 49's Fine or Aussie Expat that put this question in the poll. We have enough. You know, it's been an hour and we have 40 votes now. Do you have a watch that costs more than your car? 40% of the people said yes. 55% of people said no. Interesting. Interesting. I wasn't expecting it to be so even, so close. Jay says Big Mac. Hey man, people love you, man. You should be here more often.
Yeah. No, bit of a busy day today, honestly. Cleaned out the safety deposit boxes. Kind of had to go through a bunch of important documents to kind of figure out what's relevant, what's not relevant anymore, and then hopefully this weekend go to a different bank and reopen a safety deposit box and start putting all the new stuff in there. But beside the point, though, I did stop into my Rolex boutique.
Really?
Yeah, and I dropped off my mom and dad's wedding rings, and I'm gonna have them professionally appraised, just for legal purposes.
Okay.
And long story short, they said, "Well, we got a couple tutors here, tutors for you to take a look at."
The new model?
And no, I was offered the root beer, diet root beer, and I declined on it. But they offered me a blacked out Tudor Black Bay 41 with the ceramic. I think it's the case, and yeah, I think it's the case.
Oh, I think that's a rare one. That's an
Is
art
it?
to get. Yeah, I think so. They ask around, but that's what I heard. I think the full ceramic Tudor is a harder one to get. Yeah, but tell me more. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, then they offered me so it's the discontinued one. It's the I forget the name of it. But it's a colorful one. It's like the rally style one. So it's got the pale cream dial, orange second tachometer hand. It comes on kind of like a NATO strap. It's a Tudor Heritage, I believe, if I'm remembering my Tudor catalog correctly here.
Yeah.
Let me kind of Google it here.
Are you talking about the Monte Carlo, the chronograph?
Yeah. I believe it's the Monte Carlo.
Let's see.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. They offered that to me as well. So it's not the black dial; it's the like cream dial. Tudor Heritage chronograph.
And with the NATO strap, right? Kind of matching colors.
Yeah. So, yep.
Yeah, that's most certainly it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think they just call it Tudor Heritage Chrono Blue rather than its original name. But since it's a remake, right?
I believe so. And I believe it's like a 42 mil. But I tried it on, and it actually fits better width-wise than my Speedmaster. But it's kind of tall on my wrist, but not overly tall. But yeah, they offered that to me as well, and I said, I don't want this garbage. I want Steel Sports Rolex. I want hype pieces. So I actually am kind of considering that black one. The only thing I don't like about it is it's PVD coated. And it just PVD just never works out in paper. It doesn't matter the brand. It could be Patek Philippe, Richard Mille, Rolex. The PVD just doesn't work out in the long run. And not to mention it's ceramic, so if you crack the son of a bitch, you're fucked.
Yeah, Heritage Black Bay ceramic. I mean, it's that's the one that is desirable, and that could be an interesting one to get. Speaking of PVD coated watches, I have an interesting one that's coming up.
There's a little markup on them. I mean, it's not like I'd be able to flip it for decent money.
If that's what you wanna do, so that's the ceramic.
It's getting to the point where I think they're trying to heavily imply that it should be buying another Tudor here, because I passed on the GMT Diet Root Beer. I passed on both of these Tudors essentially. I passed on what the fuck did they call me in for? Oh, it was a Tudor I forget what the hell. It was a completely ugly ass Tudor. It was a Tudor dredge or something like that. I can't even fucking remember. I passed on a two-tone Tudor, steel and gold. I passed on the Tudor solid yellow gold. So like they keep pushing me these shitters, and I keep declining them. So I don't know if I should be buying one or not.
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, Philips has an auction coming up on Royal Oak at his 50th birthday, and Karl Lagerfeld's own PVD coated black Royal Oak is being offered for sale too. But you see, it's like you mentioned, it's coming off. Whatever you do, it is gonna come off. It's always gonna come off. It's still a very cool watch, especially
Yeah, I
since
think it is.
it's like worn by one of the most influential fashion designers of recent time. But yeah, and I just adore this old shitty clasp. I love it, man.
It reminds me of a Bulova Royal Oak. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Exactly. I mean, the thing is, like, it's basically the Audemars Piguet equivalent of Jingly Jangly Jubilee, basically, and I just love it. Like, it's not safe. It feels like the watch might just come off your wrist any minute, but it's a very, very nice feeling very cool vintage vibe. And here he's wearing it on the cuff, which is a very affected look. But hey, if you're a fashion designer like this guy, I'm sure you can get away with it.
Yeah, I seen Theo and Harris. They had a couple weeks ago a Bulova Royal Oak for like 4.2. I thought it was kind of an interesting little homage, if you can call it that. It's more or less of a ripoff, honestly.
Right. I mean, homage is basically a fancier, euphemistic way of saying a ripoff. Anyway, but
I did like the strap though on this Tudor. I did like it.
Flip tutors for a living. Angelic Slayer gives you his advice. Alan Gill says, met a guy in Scottsdale 3 years ago wearing a Tudor mini sub on a Jingly Jangly. Beat to absolute crap, but he rocked it like a champ. I want one. There's a charm to vintage subs on a Jubilee bracelet, especially. It's a very, very interesting look, and there are a lot of Tudor subs actually that you can find on a Jubilee bracelet. Monte Carlo is apparently the reissue as well, is thick. The girth.
He's right. As a matter of fact, the all black Black Bay was actually thinner than the standard 41.
Yeah, the Black Bay ceramic is Optic's favorite watch right now. Victor M asks, the 36 mini sub or the 33? I think it was a 33 in two-tone. Sounds about right. He worked for IBM and it was a promo gift or something. Cameron is currently working on the Tudor flipping price model. Hang tight and he'll disclose his findings. Flipper. Alan Gill, I love the patina on black ion-plated watches. J617 says, Lagerfeld is the GOAT. Alan Gill says, didn't Lagerfeld leave his entire fortune to his cats? And Jay Gray says, what watch did Gurdjieff wear?
I think I'm going to do that just to kind of piss off my brother. When I die, I'm just going to leave my entire inheritance and millions of dollars of fortunes to one of my sheep.
Lagerfeld was certainly a very eccentric individual. As you know, as one of the things that older men complain about, and this will ail a lot of us as we age, is the turkey neck, right? And Lagerfeld's solution was he would get his shirts cut for him, bespoke, and he would get them with very high collars. So that's why it became his distinctive style, because he wanted to hide his neck under that shirt color. So as he aged, those colors kept rising and rising until they completely ended, like, you know, at his neck right there. So that was his little trick. And again, on any other person, it would just look comical. But because this guy was a fashion designer, he could somehow get away with it and became an icon. Basically, that was that became his logo for his own brand, the whole face. Let me just pull up the logo so we can actually understand what I'm talking about. I mean, this, and you see the collar and everything.
Mm.
Yeah. The collar and the glasses. Jay says, check out Lagerfeld's iPod collection. Instead of playlists, he would have a dedicated iPod for each music genre. The guy was, he was an oddball for sure. Drip too hard. Turkening, says Full On John, and Jay has sheep and money bags. Yeah. Would you do something as crazy as that, Smoking Joe?
I probably would. I mean, not to get too personal here, but yeah, me and my brother don't get along very well, obviously. So yeah, I would be that fucking petty, to be honest with you.
Obviously. Why obviously?
I don't know. It's just, yeah.
No, you don't have
Just like, people wouldn't be surprised if I did something like that. You know what I should do? I should, just to get Archie fucking going, we should spread the word or rumor that I put my sales rep, my Rolex boutique sales rep, into my will.
Hey, Ozzy and I were working on a shtick like that, because he just became a father again,
Right.
and I was like, why don't you go on Archie next time and say, like, that sales associate is now basically a part of my family. So when my daughter is born, I basically made her
the godfather. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that kind of story will really create some great content on Archie Luxury stream, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, he's gonna blow a gasket. You got these punters out here, guys. Don't put your dealer in your will or make him your godfather, expecting to get Rolex at retail. It's futile.
Die with zero, man. Die with zero. That's the philosophy. Don't leave anything behind. Guys, the topic of this live stream was the one that got away, and I think this is actually a great note to start wrapping things up. We're almost reaching that 3-hour mark, unless something generous comes through on PayPal or through Cash App. I think I will wrap up soon. Thanks for being here. If you haven't upvoted yet, please press that like button, subscribe, share the word, share the link on other platforms. It really helps me a great deal as I'm getting closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark, trying to get my watch hours up. So anything you do for this channel, on this channel, is already very generous. But if you want to help more, and if you want to encourage me in creating new and content, consider making a donation on PayPal, lordhellespontv@gmail.com. That's lordhellespontv@gmail.com. I also have a Cash App, which is $LHVVV, LHVVV. And you can always use that PayPal address, lordhellespontv@gmail.com, to send me emails. That's my primary point of contact. So if you want me to make a personalized video for you, if you want me to peek into the history of a brand, look into the design elements or genealogy of a particular model, if you want some help on an upcoming watch purchase, if you want me to do a collection review with you, where we can learn more about your watches and through your watches about your life and lifestyle, send me an email. There are examples of all these videos, right? You know, the great example is, of course, where we talked about, where Joe and I talked about his collection, and I think that was a great conversation, and that's I really appreciate having him on this channel and joining me this late on the panel. For the brands, you know, I did videos on Lange and Jaeger-LeCoultre recently. I had a video on Audemars Piguet's Royal Oak 50th anniversary. They're all there. They're all kind of grouped under different playlists, so it would be very easy to reach. But check them out, and if you have any special request, just email me, and with a nominal PayPal contribution, I'll be more than happy to make a video for you. I have 1 or 2 videos coming up tomorrow that I will upload. It's a little bit of a suspense there. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but it will be something similar to that Lange and Jaeger-LeCoultre content. So keep your eyes peeled. Joe, do you have anything to add?
My AD said this concerning, our boutique said this concerning Rolex selling pre-owned. She said, in a nutshell, I think as a sales rep, we're going to be looking at a good, healthy year.
Okay. And good and healthy for them.
Yeah, that's the way it was kind of implied.
Okay, well, what about the customer? What about people like you and me?
Fight the customer. They don't give a shit about us, you know? They don't give a shit about us. You see, the AD thinks you're a schmuck. They want you to start your journey. Excuse me, sir. Sir, could you buy some of our undesirable tutors, sir? Sir, how about some jewelry? How about some Bell & Rosses?
Hey, some of my best friends, some of my best subscribers love Bell & Rosses. So I'm trying to even keep myself in check here. Bezos, thanks for dropping by. We were just about to conclude, unless something comes through on PayPal or Cash App. But yeah, I mean, look, there are some ADs that play games, and I think there are a lot of interesting and desirable tutors out there. But I think, yeah, the Black Bay 58 is a little played out for me at this point in time. I really do like the Pelagos. I actually like the P01. I know it's probably the least desirable tutor, but I like it. And I also love the new Black Bay Pro. I think they did some good work on that homage to the so-called Steve McQueen 1655. I like it. Ozzy says, buy a Santos, sir. And Alan Gill says, Santos is nice. And Ozzy Expat says, Santos is really nice. I mean, look, if you are, if you are into that vibe, if you you're into love rings and bracelets and similar products, Cartier offers some great jewelry for men and women. I can't get under your skin today, Joe. I think you're too Ellen Gill says BB Pro, the new GMT, is a hockey puck. It is. Look, I mean, Tudors are thick watches. Some people are actually looking for some heft and presence on their wrists. And I guess the particular complaint about this watch is that it's 39 millimeters, but still as thick. And maybe, perhaps, again, the reason I'm not getting any Tudors is because they're too thick for my taste. But I wouldn't discount them so easily. I think this watch has a lot of great design elements that make it just at least look right for me. I love the font on the bezel. I love the naked lume plots, without any surrounds. I think there are too many snowflakes on the dial, like 3 different styles of snowflake hands. That's just too much for me. I think the crown is just too big. I think the watch is a little too thick for my liking, but hey, some people like thicker watches. Some people want some heft. So I think this
Lord, I can see these being like the ADs will push these shitters on you to get a steel Pepsi Daytona. And I'm not, I'm saying this kind of comically, kind of serious, because I want to know, or rather, it seems like a lot of the YouTubers got a little extra something in their envelope to say, guys, it's not that thick, it's all in your head. If you don't include the crystal, if you don't include the bezel, it's not that thick. I mean, Bark and Jack's saying it, Jenny L's saying it. Just about everyone's saying, oh, it's a mind game, but everyone knows it's thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. I mean,
well, yeah, I wouldn't take seriously any of what those people are saying because they're usually paid to say those things.
Well, I mean, it seems like they're pretty adamant. They're really stressing it out. It's like Tudor really, like, they knew they kind of fucked up, and they said, guys, you need to convince the punters that this is a slim watch.
Yeah. So this is a picture of an older Tudor and a newer Tudor that you just sent me?
That's the picture of the GMT versus the Black Bay Pro.
Okay. And which one? The Black Bay Pro is on top, huh? Or no? That's the new GMT on top and the Black Bay Pro down?
The fact that you can't tell the difference, Lord, says a lot right there. That tells the punters everything they need to know. So the Pro would be on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
I mean, all they did was just make the lugs like a centimeter shorter. That's it. Like, they just made it slightly stubbier, and it's meh.
Yeah, it's a smaller case, but it doesn't look less thick for that reason. It's the same thickness basically, maybe a little, just a tiny bit less, but a smaller case. Yeah. Look, I mean, again, it's there's a reason I haven't bought a Tudor so far, and that's part of it. So I'm not gonna die on the hill defending it. I just want to recognize that some people do like actually that feel. Some people actually do like a thicker watch. I like things that are more sleek and discreet and subtle. I like things that can slide right under the cuff. So Ellen Gill says, go with a Pelagos LHD, no regrets. I do like that watch. I really adore the one that Aussie has. BB Pro looked great on the wrist from what I've seen. J Grade doesn't appreciate the faux rivets. Alan Gill says BB Pro is thicker than the Pelagos. That's about the maximum thickness that I can handle. That is a problem. Jake says Mercedes hands. Yeah, we need some Mercedes or Cathedral hands on Tudor, but I don't think they will do it. You better not be talking shit about Tudor on Tuesday. Ozzy says it's lovely. It's Speedy Tuesday, Ozzy. Tool watch should be thicker. Yeah, you see, some people like it that way. If it was BB58, think Grand Slam. I'm not feeling this BB Pro. I want to love it, but I know it's going to bother me. And earlier, Aussie Expat said BB Pro is awesome. Can't wait for it to get softer so it can become a ticket to my next Daytona. I hope that's going to be precious metal on Oyster Flex. All right, guys, I will end on that note. I thank all the panelists who have come in today, Aussie Expat, Joe, of course, earlier, Ali and Ari came in, and Saber was here for a very long time. So I appreciate you all. I appreciate everyone who pushed the conversation forward, responded in the chat, asked a question, interacted in some way. If you have enjoyed the content, please don't forget to upvote, subscribe if you haven't, spread the word. I'll see you tomorrow. And until then, I bid you adieu. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joe.